All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. We will start with House Bill 1353, Delegate Fare, Homeless Individuals, Fee and Examination Exemptions. And if you have a panelist, please bring them up.
Mr. Chair, if I could have my panelists join me up here from DHCD, Melissa Muntz, and from Education, forgive me, wrong binder, Schoolhouse Connection. Do not see Mr. Muntz or the representative from DHCD yet. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Am I good to get started, Mr. Chair? Thank you. Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the committee, Delegate Chris Fair here for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on House Bill 1353. This bill is about making sure that people experiencing homelessness can get the essential documents that they need for employment, housing, and health care without fees standing in the way. Right now, too many homeless Marylanders are stuck in their circumstances because they cannot afford the cost of documents like a birth certificate, vehicle registration, or a driver's license. Many of these are documents on almost every job application, housing program, or healthcare provider requires. When someone is already struggling to meet their most basic needs, these fees become real barriers that keep them from getting back on their feet. Maryland already waives fees for veterans and their families. HB 1353 simply extends that same courtesy to people experiencing homelessness. Maryland has a moral responsibility to make sure that we are doing everything we can to help people who are trying to rebuild their lives. Homeless Marylanders should never have to choose between paying for food and paying for the documents required to survive in our system. I have a sponsor amendment that incorporates feedback from advocates and removes outdated language so that no one who needs help is excluded. House Bill 1353 is a small change with a big impact. It costs the state very little, and it will make an enormous difference for the people trying to secure housing, get a job, or access medical care. We have the ability and the obligation to remove these barriers and perpetuate homelessness. Passing this bill is one simple, meaningful step toward treating every person in our state with dignity, and I respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Melissa, and I'm with the Student Homelessness Initiative Partnership of Frederick County, or SHIP. We serve youth experiencing homelessness from kindergarten through age 24, primarily in the 16 to 18-year-old range. One of our most in-demand programs is our driver education and car purchase program. We have licensed 182 young people with their driver's license since we started the programming in 2022. The cost of obtaining a driver's license alone is extreme. If you do not have a parent or guardian with a vehicle with whom you can obtain practice hours, you have to pay for those practice hours through the driving school. That cost alone can be over $5,000 for a young person. That is in addition to the cost of purchasing a vehicle, registering the vehicle, insuring the vehicle. These costs are astronomical. We know that transportation is key to access and to breaking the cycle of homelessness. We know that if our young people are better able to attend school, whether that be high school, college, a GED program, a trade program, they will be able to break that cycle of homelessness and not rely on social services moving forward. We feel it is extremely important not only to reduce these fees that are associated with car purchase, with registration, and with all the things Delegate Fair mentioned, we also feel it's important to acknowledge that the wait time for young people experiencing homelessness is too long. If young people are purchasing the extended driving hours through the driving school, they're not practicing at home with a parent or with a guardian or with an adult with a vehicle, they are completing their programming, all of the necessary steps to get licensed easily in a 3-month period. And then they are sitting and they're waiting for 6 months until they are able to take a licensing exam. That's a time of lost skills. That's a time of missed opportunity. They don't have access to consistent transportation and they're waiting. They're in a waiting period. It also delays their ability to get important licenses like truck driver's license or other vocational specialties. So I request that you vote this favorable. Thank you.
Thank you. Your other witnesses are on virtually, Delegate. And before I get to them, I just want to acknowledge we have guests from the Health Committee. We have the Majority Whip. We've got Delegate Riley, and we've got Delegate Kaufman. So thank you all for being with us. And we will turn to Rod Montz, Schoolhouse Connection.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Motz. I am the Director of State Policy for Schoolhouse Connection, here to express our strong support for HB 1353. Schoolhouse Connection is a national nonpartisan nonprofit working to overcome homelessness through early care and education. We do this in partnership with legislators, educators, youth and families with lived experience in homelessness, and advocates. And this work has included multiple engagements in Maryland. We believe that HB 1353 would help many youth experiencing homelessness across the state to overcome significant obstacles. The cost to obtain identity and driver's records and the difficulty with navigating the process of obtaining them is often imposing for youth experiencing homelessness due to the many challenges that accompany their instability. We especially appreciate the inclusion of homeless education liaisons and other designated school personnel in the bill, because these educators are essential for effectively identifying and supporting students experiencing homelessness. They are well positioned to assist with status certification and with navigating the process of obtaining documents. So the inclusion of this language in the bill is a strength. We thank Delegate Fair and the co-sponsors for their leadership on this bill. And I'll just say in closing that currently, legislatures in Alaska, Louisiana, Michigan, Utah, and West Virginia, among others, are currently considering vital records legislation. And also that Virginia passed a similar bill last year. Lawmakers in these states have also recognized that passing this type of legislation is an extremely low-cost way to better support homeless students who are striving to achieve academically, to work, and to address their instability. For these reasons, we urge the legislature to consider passing HB 1353. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll turn to Danielle Meister from the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Danielle Meister. I'm the Assistant Secretary of the Division of Homeless Solutions at the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. It's my honor to be here to testify in support of this legislation today, which we feel would significantly reduce barriers to employment, housing, education, and public benefits for people experiencing homelessness. It makes it easier for them to access vital documents, identification, and transportation via car ownership. Every year, over 22,000 Marylanders experience homelessness. They're sleeping in a car, a shelter, outside on the streets, in the elements. At DHCD, we work closely with the state's 9 continuums of care across the state to track trends in homelessness and try to eliminate barriers to achieve permanent housing. And the data that we collect through these local systems shows that last year, 54% of adults who experienced homelessness had zero cash income when they came into a homeless shelter or a street outreach program. Only 31% reported they had SNAP benefits, and 78% reported they had health care. And the severe lack of income and employment is both a cause and effect of homelessness. Lack of identification and limited transportation are major compounding barriers to securing stable housing and employment, particularly for people experiencing homelessness. Without an ID, people cannot apply for jobs, sign leases, open bank accounts, enroll in workforce programs or schools, or access public benefits in some cases. And for people experiencing homelessness, getting and maintaining ID is even harder because they lack a permanent address. Documents are frequently lost due to moves, being displaced, being stolen, and fees are for duplicate copies can be prohibitive for someone who doesn't have income. So we're really thrilled to see this legislation be presented and move forward. We hope the committee provides a favorable report. We want to note specifically that homeless young adults have an even harder time, and 23% of youth in our last youth survey documented lack of documentation. So we recommend a favorable report and appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Delegate Kaufman now at the end of the horseshoe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's good to be an ENT. My question is for the sponsor. Our speaker talks a lot about affordability and opportunity. And so when we eliminate the affordability barriers that you outline in the bill, aren't we giving individuals an opportunity to exit homelessness? Because with the IDs and vital records and different things, it's going to be much easier for them to obtain employment and housing. Yeah. Because we all hope that someone's homeless for just a moment in time, not forever.
Thank you, and that should be the goal when somebody experiences homelessness, that we should be fighting to pull them out and so that it's non-recurring and as brief as possible. Some of these issues that we're trying to tackle in this bill specifically prolong and create a longer state of homelessness. So I encourage my colleagues, as you all know, we don't do a fiscal analysis in our fiscal notes. We just simply talk about the upfront costs. I want you to think about what happens when an individual ends up homeless for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and the strain that that puts on the system and the strain that that puts on us financially versus the low cost of this bill in order to eliminate these fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate.
I do not see any other questions. Okay, that concludes the bill here, House Bill 1353, but we'll stick with Delegate Fair. House Bill 1447, Motor Vehicle Administration, Improper Registration, Investigation, and Penalties.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair Guyton and members of the committee, Delegate Chris Fair for the record, testifying on House Bill 1447. Last year, I was sent by then Speaker Jones to represent the Maryland General Assembly at a tax policy seminar in Utah. I learned a lot about a growing problem with improper vehicle registration that is affecting every single state in our country. I'm going to try to take a 2-hour panel discussion and distill it here in just a few minutes, so bear with me. It gets a little wonky, so bear with me, friends. We're all familiar with a Virginia law that has frustrated our vehicle registration laws, but what I'm here to talk today about is Montana LLCs. You all should have received a video in your email earlier today from my office outlining exactly how easy this program is to apply for and to purchase vehicles. Montana law allows individuals to set up an LLC to purchase and register vehicles under that LLC, taking advantage of Montana's extremely low taxes and fees. What this means in practice is that very wealthy, the ultra wealthy, who live in Maryland are purchasing luxury cars, luxury boats, and luxury RVs, registering them under a Montana LLC, getting a Montana license plate, having it shipped to them here in Maryland, putting it on those vehicles, boats, and RVs, and then driving and storing those cars here in Maryland. But because they're registered in Montana, they don't pay any Maryland taxes or fees, and they aren't subject to emissions tests. To give you a sense of how widespread this tactic has become, Montana has 2.3 million registered vehicles, but only 879,000 drivers. Just want to say that again, 2.3 million cars for 879,000 drivers. More than double the national average of any other state in our country. California's DMV found that 10,000 vehicles worth an estimated $2 billion had been sold by California dealers to Montana LLCs since 2022. This strategy is employed by dozens of companies who boast about the tax savings they can provide. I'd like to read an excerpt from dirtlegal.com. We talk about Montana LLC registration program a lot, and with good reason. It's our flagship program that we have used to register thousands of vehicles over the years. It is our best seller because it's the most versatile registration program in our inventory, and it is one that will save you the most money in sales tax. The same website goes on to say, while you generally have to own your own vehicle outright, if you want to take advantage of Montana's laws, you can go to South Dakota if your car has a lien. So clearly more than one state is responsible for the problem. States like Utah, California, Iowa, Illinois, Massachusetts, Indiana, Missouri, and Georgia are all responding. Leadership was led here by Utah. A Republican state senator decided that enough was enough and put in the first law in the country, of which other states are now following, because they are losing millions of dollars in fees and tax revenue. I am urging Maryland to do the same and ensure everyone is paying their fair share to maintain our vehicle infrastructure. House Bill 1447 follows the successful approach used in Utah. It gives the Motor Vehicle Administration clear authority to investigate these improper registrations and impose penalty to inform the purchaser that they need to re-register in Maryland and impose penalties when individuals evade Maryland law. That money would go directly to our Transportation Trust Fund where it belongs. The bottom line is simple. If someone is driving, storing, and using a vehicle in Maryland, they should follow the same rules as you and I. People with enough resources to create an out-of-state LLC should not get a free pass while every other Marylander pays to maintain the roads we all use. House Bill 1447 levels the playing field. It ensures fairness, and it protects the revenue needed to maintain the infrastructure every Marylander relies on. I respectfully ask for a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can you think of anything good we could use that TTF money for?
Oh, I could think of a few things, possibly the last bill that I just presented, amongst everything else. And
Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo.
And a project in Route
Thank you.
15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, this includes motorcycles as well, aren't they registering motorcycles?
Yeah, they can register, literally, it's a wide swath of cars, and they're not just buying one when they're doing this. They're buying, a half a dozen vehicles, boats, RVs, et cetera. I mean, this is like.
Some people might have like 5 or 10 motorcycles and then register them all in another state.
Right, some people, not.
Yeah, some people that I've seen.
Some people, we might have, yeah.
Any further questions on this bill? Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Delegate.
Pleasure.
Did you see MDOT's letter, and are you working with them?
I am. So we had a meeting late. Unfortunately, we had reached out initially when we first had this idea. We reached out to the comptroller's office, who expressed a lot of interest in this subject matter, and we reached out to MDOT. Unfortunately, there was some cross wires and we weren't able to connect until this week. They now understand that this bill is significantly different than the effort that they're trying to undertake with the Virginia laws.
Okay.
And so they're very comfortable with understanding that this is specifically dealing with this one, what's referred to nationally as the Montana loophole.
Okay, because they put those no position, and they did give some more information. So, I mean, given that they just probably submitted this, you think they're still under the impression that it was the former version of your bill versus what it is now?
Yeah, I think there's another bill in this committee that deals with an issue with Virginia.
Yes.
And that bill they weren't sure that bill was substantively different than my bill.
Understood.
And so, yeah, that's where, so they issued the letter before we had that meeting to talk about the bill, and they walked out feeling comfortable.
Understood. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Delegate. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify.
All right, thank you, Delegate Fair. That concludes the bill here on House Bill 1447. We'll return to the Vice Chair, House Bill 1408, Motor Vehicles, Automated Traffic Enforcement Systems, Impoundment.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, wonderful members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, Delegate Michelle Guyton, Baltimore County, here to present to you 1408. And I love that Delegate Fair went right before this bill because he set the stage perfectly. We're both attempting to solve some of the same problems. This bill actually doesn't discriminate between whether you are an in-state or out-of-state registered car owner, although it does actually penalize people who register out of state, and they're no longer able to evade paying the fines that the rest of us do. So this bill allows law enforcement, and I have some fabulous members from Baltimore County here with me today, to hold speeders and reckless drivers accountable by granting them the authority to impound a vehicle if they repeatedly fail to pay automatic violations. And this can be any sort of automatic monitoring violation that is allowable by law because we passed it in this committee. So the current law allows law enforcement officers to tow vehicles registered in another state for unpaid parking violations. This will allow them to do the same thing for unpaid speed monitoring and stop sign monitoring and school bus monitoring, automated enforcement. So we've heard Delegate Fair tell you the scope of the problem. We are all very much aware of the scope of the problem. I do want to just give you one piece of information. According to the Maryland Vehicle Administration records, so we have 58,000 speeding violations have been issued to drivers with out-of-state tags, but only 11% of those have been paid. Okay, so the rest of them get off scot-free. And I've already told my folks here today that my favorite new word this session is scofflaw. So we call them scofflaws because they're getting away with breaking the law with absolutely no penalty. So the lack of this accountability for dangerous drivers, particularly those with out-of-state tags, really does put us all at risk And it encourages out-of-state registration, because currently all we can do if someone has a whole bunch of tickets is deny their registration for their car when that comes up again. Well, you can't do that if they're not registered in the state of Maryland. So this gives us another tool in the toolbox to hold those people accountable, but also just folks who are registered in Maryland who continuously drive dangerously and refuse to pay the fines. So I do want to speak to some of the favorable amendments that you have today. The State Highway Administration recommends that the committee amend the bill to provide that impoundment can't occur until the vehicle's registration is flagged by them. And you're going to hear from my panelists here today why that is not necessary, because they are not going through the flagging system, and we're not requiring MVA to do that in order to impound the vehicles. Baltimore County requested a technical amendment to authorize a local authority, it's generally a word change, to impound the vehicles instead of an actual law enforcement officer. And I'm sure that we all understand why that is, because our officers have better things to do than towing cars and probably being at hearings in Annapolis. So I'm going to say that one I would definitely consider a friendly amendment and would like for the subcommittee to adopt and the committee to adopt as we discuss this bill. There was also one unfavorable by a rental car company or rental car association. They have not reached out to me before this hearing, and I only saw their letter this morning, but if they wish to do so, then we might be able to work out some solution with them. But currently I have no amendments for that group of people. Thank you very much, and I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1408 to solve one of the problems that we hear the very most about from our constituents.
Chairman Corman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1408. I'm Chief Robert McCullough of the Baltimore County Police Department. In addition to representing Baltimore County and the Baltimore County Police Department, I'm also representing the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association and the Maryland Sheriff's Association, which have submitted written testimony. This is a scofflaw bill. By making scofflaws pay their citations, we can force them to change their behavior and respect important traffic laws when they drive on our streets. I believe this bill can also help address the continuing trend of Maryland residents illegally registering their vehicles out of state. How big is the unpaid citation problem? It's huge. Just in Baltimore County, when we ran a report to show vehicles with 3 or more unpaid automated enforcement citations, we found that we have almost 6,000 such vehicles owing nearly $500,000. About 20% have double-digit numbers of unpaid citations. Some have many more. One vehicle has 65 unpaid citations. Captain Miller, who's sitting to my left, will give you more of those details in a moment. Why do unpaid citations matter? Because scofflaws are violating with impunity. They don't care about speed cameras or school bus cameras when children are in the roadway, or red light cameras, because they know they are not going to pay their citations. That makes our streets unsafe. We currently have no way to enforce these citations against the vehicles registered in Virginia. Our only enforcement is to have the MVA flag a Maryland registration. But with a 3-year registration period, it can take years before owners are required to pay. And we believe some owners are abandoning their Maryland registration and shifting to Virginia to avoid their unpaid citations, as well as Maryland's registration and insurance requirements. With this impoundment authority, we can enforce citations before owners can evade the changing of the registration. I'm so appreciative of Vice Chairman Michelle Guyton for sponsoring this bill, and I urge a favorable report with one technical amendment. Thank you.
Chairman Corman, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am currently the precinct commander in Precinct 7, Cockeysville, and until recently I was the commander of our traffic management section. We know that automated enforcement saves lives. We consistently find that speed cameras modify behavior, as speeding violations decrease after a camera is installed. But when drivers are scofflaws, violating traffic laws, and not paying their citations, there is no behavior modification. In Baltimore County alone, we have 1,685 unpaid citations for for vehicles registered out of state that would qualify for impoundment under the proposed bill, totaling $123,440. For Virginia registered vehicles, Baltimore County is currently owed $68,180 for 774 unpaid automated enforcement citations that have been issued to just 105 vehicles. 26 of those vehicles have at least one school bus camera violation. After analyzing the data, we have determined that there is also a significant enforcement problem for vehicles registered in Maryland. In Baltimore County, we have 4,307 unpaid citations for Maryland registered vehicles that would qualify for impoundment, totaling $324,394. We are aware that there is opposition to this bill from rental car agencies. We are unsure why, due to the fact that rental cars are currently exempted from automated enforcement programs such as speed and red light. Here in Baltimore County, we also have a school bus program where there is a process to transfer liability. If the General Assembly decides to repeal that exemption, presumably enforcement methods would be addressed as a part of that repeal. We are asking for one technical amendment to the bill. Instead of authorizing impoundment by a law enforcement agency, as the chief indicated, we request the wording local authority, so each jurisdiction can determine the most appropriate way to exercise the impoundment action, including using civilian agencies. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman Corman, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Meg Ferguson. I'm the director of the Baltimore County Police Department's legal section, and I serve as the department's senior policy advisor. When developing this proposal, we did look around the country to see how this problem is handled elsewhere. The city of Chicago established a vehicle immobilization program for impoundment in 1987. If a registered owner accrues 3 or more unpaid parking, red light, or speed camera tickets in any combination, or 2 with final status older than 1 year, the vehicle can be booted, and if fines are not paid within 24 hours, the vehicle can be towed. New York City similarly can boot a vehicle with $350 or more in parking or camera tickets that are in judgment, and again, can be towed quickly if the boot is not respected. Here in Maryland, vehicles with unpaid parking tickets currently can be impounded by local jurisdictions. For example, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Montgomery County each have local ordinances that provide for impoundment of vehicles with 3 or more unpaid parking tickets. House Bill 1408 does not incorporate unpaid parking tickets, and it also does not combine unpaid citations across jurisdictions. A vehicle would need 3 unpaid citations in a single jurisdiction to qualify for impoundment, and it would be managed by each jurisdiction. The Motor Vehicle Administration and its flagging process would not be involved. The flags are put on at the request of local jurisdictions, and I don't even know if all jurisdictions request such flags, but that would not be part of the process that would need to be used. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a question from Baltimore County's own Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, I'm not opposed to this idea, so I want to start off with that. I actually had a bill a couple years ago do something somewhat similar with Virginia tags. And I went down this pathway, so I'm just curious, the language in the bill says when parked. What are you getting at with that? Because they kind of came against my bill a few years ago. Is it parked on the street? Is it parked in a driveway? Is it parked in a private lot? So I just, I want you to think about that, because I actually think that this is a good idea to get these folks that haven't paid their fines off the road. So what were you thinking about with that there?
I believe each local jurisdiction would have to follow everything else that governs government operations in using this authority. So being parked on the public street would be the most common and likely way to approach it. I mean, you would need, the police would need a warrant to get onto private property, et cetera, if that's where your question was going.
And that is where my question is going, but as you're well aware, look, I'm actually not opposed to getting some of these folks off their driveways. Like if you got a Virginia tag and you shouldn't have a Virginia tag, code enforcement in Baltimore County, as you're well aware, actually can go onto driveways and get a vehicle off of a driveway. So that's why I was kind of curious where you were going with that when it's parked. It becomes a code enforcement issue at that point. It's not just law enforcement, but there is a way to tow vehicles. I've went way down this rabbit hole with another bill before there is a way to tow vehicles on a driveway.
Yes, Delegate, though in that instance, it would be for a code enforcement issue like an operative vehicle, like junk and trash and et cetera. I don't think that would apply here, honestly.
And that's fair. Often, though, I guess with those, you often see at these homes, when they have these issues with tags, there's also a lot of other stuff going, you'll find a lot of other stuff going on at the property frequently, at least in my district. We found several of these houses where there's lots of other things going on, and that was the logic behind the code enforcement. But I just wanted to throw that out, Delegate, for you to think about that. If it also means like the mall parking lot, like what does that mean there with that? So just as a thought.
Delegate Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the two officers. My district borders Virginia, and we're overrun with Virginia tags. But when you have a Virginia tag in Virginia, you have to have an annual inspection, and you have to have the sticker on your windshield. Why can't Maryland officials enforce that or have that vehicle impounded when it's missing the inspections? Because it wouldn't be legal on Virginia highways. So how is it not legal in Virginia but still legal in Maryland?
I can answer it, or you can answer it. Feel free. Right.
Go ahead.
So I just want to speak to the bill. Certainly could answer that question, but speaking to the bill, this is not a Virginia tag bill. This is a bill for anyone in the state of Maryland who hasn't paid their tickets, their automated enforcement tickets. So whether they're coming from Virginia into your district, if they get a lot of tickets and they don't pay them in your district, then you would be able to impound, whether your police officers would be able to impound them under this bill. As far as I think what you're suggesting is another type of enforcement, but this bill doesn't touch on that.
Yeah, I was just, why I had people that know much more than I do.
Delegate Anderson, we have a lot of witnesses on a lot of bills.
I'm sorry.
So we can definitely follow up to get your information, but we got to keep on the bill in front of us. Questions on this bill? Okay, thank you to the delegate, as the vice chair on our panel. We have additional favorable witnesses in person. John Sang, Maryland Coalition for Roadway Safety. At the same time, I'll bring up Michael De Lorenzo, Next Car All Vehicle Rentals, favorable amendment, and John Dill, NPR Auto Group.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Corman and Vice Chair and Bill Sponsor Guyton to my right, and members of the House Environment and Transportation Committee. I'm John Sang, Chair of Safe Roads. And in the interest of saving a little time here, I'm just going to address a couple of three items that we haven't heard about that Safe Roads Maryland's very concerned with. Research consistently shows that these drivers who don't pay their traffic citations are more likely to commit future violations and be involved in crashes. We're all about road safety. We certainly support fine payment as a deterrent to poor road violence practices, but the fact that the data shows and makes a tight correlation between recidivism is a real concern for us. The traffic offending community is often repetitive behavior associated. Next, there I think was some suggestion or some hint here and there that, the point I want to make is that Maryland public roads belong to everyone. Drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, school children, and seniors. The public interest requires that road laws be coherent, fair, and actually enforced. And that leads me to the point that if someone truly cannot afford to pay a fine, and that's why they're not paying, and I don't know what the statistical breakdown is there, the answer can't simply be to keep driving the same way and keep ignoring the citations. Driving is a privilege, and there are other lawful transportation options until their payment issues are resolved. Traffic violations are rarely one-off events. Research shows they tend to cluster in the same drivers. So Safe Roads Maryland respectfully requests your favorable report for HB 1408.
Okay. Good afternoon, delegates. My name is Mike DiLorenzo. I'm president of the Maryland car rental company named Next Car. We have 16 locations all across the state. We're headquartered in Laurel, Maryland. I have 110 employees, and I've been doing business exclusively in Maryland since 1969. So I've been doing this a really long time. So I support the objectives of House Bill 1408. There are, I even used the word scofflaws in my piece that I sent in, who abuse the privilege of using our roads and should be held accountable. Absolutely agree with that. However, I request one amendment, page 2, line 26, overdue by at least 30 days. It has to be changed by overdue by at least 120 days. Now, you're still going to get the scofflaws because there's three kinds of people: people that always pay their bills, people that want to pay their bills and can't, and then the scofflaws never intend to pay their bills. So they're always going to be 120 days late. What we really have to worry about is the people who want to pay their bills and can't. Because these new electronic tickets, I call them digital tickets, they're high dollar. $250 for a school bus, $500 for speeding in a work zone. You got lots of $500 tickets out there. People just don't have extra $500 to pay the ticket in 1 week's paycheck. But the real problem that I want to make everybody aware of is the notification method. It's broken. What happens in Maryland, and I did a lot of research looking at actual tickets all over the state. I understand there's 6 different vendors in the state that are managing tickets for the jurisdictions, and they're all following different processes. Some of them start the clock the day you get the ticket. They start 28 days. They tell you the ticket is due 28 days after the ticket's issued. But then they date the cover letter that they're sending the ticket to you 10 days, 20 days after the ticket was issued. So by the time the post office delivers the paper ticket to you, there's 24 of the 28 days have already been used. So there's a real problem with paper ticket delivery. It has to be changed to digital delivery. We've got to get out of the dinosaur age of delivering notifications, because that's what these are, via paper. We have to change it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your testimony. Thanks for being here. Mr. Dill.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the committee. My name is John Dill. I've been renting cars since 1997. I represent Next Car, a Maryland-based car rental company that's been operating since 1969. We employ about 110 people and manage roughly 2,500 vehicles. I want to start by saying I understand the goal of this bill. I fully support the idea of targeting chronic offenders. These scofflaws should absolutely be held accountable for endangering our lives every single day, which is the very reason we fully support all camera ticket systems. But my rental fleet is not a chronic offender. My cars are driven by thousands of law-abiding citizens every year. When a violation happens, the renter, the driver, is responsible, not the vehicle, not my company. The problem for companies like mine is a 30-day timeline. In reality, I usually receive these notices 13 to 23 days after the violation. That allows me very little time to open the mail, scan the notice, research who had the car, and respond properly to transfer liability to the chronic offender, which this bill is intended to target. For a business managing thousands of vehicles, that timeline is simply not realistic. I'm asking for a fair amendment. I'm not asking you to weaken enforcement. Please consider extending the response window from 30 days to 120 days, so businesses like mine have a reasonable amount of time to process these notices and identify the actual driver responsible. If not, this law may affect a renter who has never violated any traffic law. This bill allows the state to tow the rental car that has been rented to a doctor just because her car is in the shop for repair. Again, I extended the response time to 120 days will allow the state to go after the real violators without unfairly punishing Maryland small businesses. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I do not see any questions, so we will turn to some unfavorable witnesses. John DeRose, Enterprise, and Don Lefebvre, American Car Rental Association.
Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, And members of the committee, my name is Don LaFave. I'm the president of the American Car Rental Association. On behalf of our members operating in Maryland, I appreciate the opportunity to testify. Provided more detailed written testimony for your review, which further outlines our concerns with this legislation. ACRA represents the entire U.S. car rental industry, from major national brands to small independent and franchise operators across Maryland. We're here today to express an unfavorable position on HB 1408. While our members support the goal of holding drivers accountable, HB 1408 unfairly targets the owners of the vehicles rather than the individual drivers responsible for the infractions. Our opposition is based on three critical points. First is misplaced liability. A rental car is a business asset operated by a third-party customer. Impounding a vehicle for the actions of a transient driver unfairly penalizes the fleet owner, who has no control over that driver's behavior. Administrative barriers. The current notification process, as was mentioned in the previous panel, is often delayed. So by the time a rental car company is notified of multiple unpaid tickets, the vehicle has likely been through several different renters. Last is operational interference. Under this bill, a vehicle could be impounded while legally parked. This forces private businesses to absorb recovery costs, lost revenue, and administrative burdens to clear citations they did not earn. This policy shifts the state enforcement burden on the private businesses rather than focusing on the person behind the wheel. So we urge the committee to exempt rental car fleets from the impoundment provisions. If that cannot be done, we respectfully request an unfavorable report on HB 1408. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the committee. My name is John DeRose. I represent Enterprise Mobility. We own and operate Enterprise National and Alamo Rent-A-Car and other lines of transportation in the state of Maryland. In Maryland, we have 122 locations across the state, and we employ 2,000 people. I'm here in opposition to 1408 in its current form. Most of the points that my cohorts have mentioned, we're in agreement with. Our bigger issue, very similarly, is really the timing and the liability issue. On the timing issue, in Maryland, our renters generate about 1,700 tickets per month. All those tickets are then mailed to us in various locations that then have to be consolidated and sent to Tulsa, Oklahoma to be paid. The timing of those tickets can be anywhere from 20 to 60 days till it gets to Tulsa from the violation. So obviously the 30-day timing is a great concern to us. But more so, and Don just mentioned it, with the current renter who's in the car that may be pulled over or in violation at that time because of the unpaid tickets, we're dealing with something very similar right now. Last year we passed a bill, or you guys passed a bill to allow fleet companies to have license plates without stickers. So the bill passed, became effective in July. We have consistently, since that bill passed and put those tags on our cars, our renters are getting pulled over, cars are being impounded. Impound lots are not releasing the cars even though they're legally tagged. Our renters are getting $100 tickets. It's becoming a huge issue. It's a safety issue. The cars are being taken from the renters, and our branches are unable to get these things. So it's a huge financial issue. It's a customer service issue. It's a safety issue. So we would support it with amendments, but in this current form, we urge an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any questions, so I believe that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1408. We'll turn to Delegate Long, House Bill 1379, Vehicle Laws, Vehicle Registration Fees, 6th Legislative District.
Welcome to the committee. Delegate Long, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, committee members. It's a pleasure to be in front of you here today. For the record, I'm Delegate Bob Long. This is House Bill 1379. This bill actually is to help the people in my district. As everyone here is well aware of what happened with the Key Bridge when it collapsed. It's affected a lot of people, but especially in my district, because now we not only have extra traffic coming out of the ports, our roads are being tore up, it's putting more stress on our cars, more time to get here. And I just, when I'm coming here in the morning, I look at the people, they're stressed. Used to be a commute here was 45 minutes. Now you're lucky if you can make an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. And this bill is to hopefully, if we get it passed, to give a little bit of cushion to the people in my district. It's not only the fuel, but the wear and tear on their cars, the extra time it takes to go from my district to anywhere, because we're on Peninsula. So you have to go through a tunnel if you want to come to the other side of the state, or go around a beltway. And that's why we asked for this bill. And we specifically asked for the 6th legislative district because I see what happens in my district. I see the impact it's had on my constituents. And, you know, I think it's the least we could do, given the impact of more fuel, like I said, more fuel, wear and tear, just time. And I just look this stress on people's faces coming through the Harbor Tunnel. I mean, you sit there for 10, 15 minutes. We need to do whatever we can to make sure that we can help my constituents out. We're hoping that the Key Bridge gets rebuilt as quickly as possible, as safely as possible. And that's what this bill is all about, to make sure we can help out my people in my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Long. If you don't mind, we absolutely do understand and feel for the people in your district and everyone affected by the bridge collapse. I do have a question. You made a great argument that they're suffering because of that. I'm not sure that I understood exactly what you were asking us to do in this bill. Can you tell us briefly, what does this bill do?
All right, the purpose of this bill would be to reduce registration fees by $50, which is very modest, considering the cost of fuel and extra wear and tear. They're still going through the tunnels. We're not saving them money on that. And like I said, the wear and tear on vehicles just coming through my district. And I don't know if anybody here has been on BWI lately, but it's pretty rough. And that's what this bill is about. It'll give a little bit of relief to the people in my district. It's $50. I could have asked a whole lot more, but I'm thinking, I'd like to do something. You know, a little something is better than nothing at all. And that's why it was drawn the way it was. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. So this would be only for people who are registered to vote in the 6th district.
Not vote. Any tags under this, you have different classes of cars.
Okay.
And it doesn't go into commercial vehicles. It only goes up to a certain weight.
Sure.
And
so anyone who has an address
right, anyone
that lies
presides in the 6th legislative district, and it can be identified.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any other questions, so that will be the end of the hearing on House Bill 1379. And we will now move on to.
Thank you, Madam.
Let me look at the list. It looks like Delegate Terrassa, House Bill 1283, Maryland Transportation Authority Video Tolls Collection. So we have some themes going on today.
Madam Chair, can we call up the rest of the in favor witnesses?
Certainly. So we have Brett Wilson in person, and we have an oral virtual favorable Heather Geary.
Okay. Sorry.
Welcome back to your favorite committee, Delegate.
This is. Shh, don't tell anyone. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Guyton, I will say, and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Jen Terrassa, here to present HB 1283, Maryland Transportation Authority Video Tolls Collection, which addresses the issue of exorbitant fees associated with unpaid tolls. This is a bipartisan bill and is cross-filed by Senator J.B. Jennings. And I would be remiss if I didn't make note that this is really a Al Carr bill, and those of you who remember Al Carr probably remember all of his video toll bills in our committee, your committee. So as background, when a driver goes through a toll facility, two things can happen. The toll is deducted from your Easy Pass account if you have one and it's got money on it. Or two, a camera takes a photo of your license plate and the system sends a notice of toll due to a registered owner of the vehicle based on the MVA DMV records. Drivers in Maryland who fail to pay a toll within 30 days of it being sent, not received, but sent, will receive a citation from the Maryland Transportation Authority with a $25 civil penalty for each unpaid toll. So that means if you went somewhere and back, and you should have paid without a Easy Pass $12, that's all of a sudden $12 plus $50 fee. So a person who commutes 5 times a week could easily be fined $250 for tolls that might only have been $30 before they even know it. And these add up fast. These penalties can quickly stack up and become an economic hardship. MDTA sends several notices in the mail about tolls that are owed. And if the tolls and penalties are not paid within 90 days, it can lead to suspension of or refusal to renew your Maryland vehicle registration. If the final toll violation notice goes unpaid, customers are referred to Central Collection Unit, where that adds up even more to a total amount owed of 17, well, it adds to the amount owed 17% more. And once that goes to CCU, MDTA is not able to adjust the amount owed, including the fees. They can only work with people on a payment plan, which is often so high it's unmanageable. And your registration is, especially it's a problem if your registration is suspended and you can't work. And they can't work with customers to waive the enormous collection fees they have incurred. So what my bill does, obviously there's a number of issues here that need to be addressed, but this particular problem is the aim of HB 1283, giving MDTA the ability to work with its customers on a more reasonable plan, especially when they are eager to pay off their debt and move on. So a little bit more about the problem. I will say, well, let me say this first. The reason for failure to pay the original toll can vary. Sometimes it's because the Easy Pass responders stop working unbeknownst to them. Other times it's because they never received the notice of toll due or subsequent citation. And sometimes it's because by the time they hear about it, the amount has ballooned into something they just can't handle. My testimony, my written testimony has a story from one of my constituents who found she had a $1,400 bill that had already been sent to collections. She never received any notice about the violation, which turned out to be over 5 years ago, and the amount was beyond her financial capacity, and it was causing extreme stress. I also heard from another constituent who was trying to work out payment plans with MDTA for what he thought was a $20,000 balance, but was told he actually owed $40,000. These are not that unusual, $40,000, $20,000, $80,000. As you can imagine, those are not payable by the average person. And I'm sure you've heard from constituents in your own district with their own pleas. I just want to note the response. One of the things that MDTA said is that there are 5 notices, and I'm happy to go through them with any of you. I won't take your time now. But the notices come so fast and furious, and if your information is wrong in the first place, it can add up and move on, and you now owe so much more than you ever would have owed in the first place. I was trying to do some back-of-the-envelope math, which I shouldn't do without Vaughn Stewart. I think actually, I'm not going to even try to do the back of the envelope without him. But I will say also there was a discussion about lost revenue. And to the extent that this is a lost revenue, I would say that the overwhelming amount that is due in these is late fees that add up so fast. And we should be able to do something for our constituents, especially when they want to. I mean, one of the people who called me said, I owe $6,000, it's my fault, I need to do this, but I can't pay $6,000, what can you do? And when we called MDTA, they weren't able to work with any of that because it was already in Central Collection Unit. So aligned with our current focus on affordability, this bill allows the MDTA to work with people trying to do the right thing, pay their tolls, and keep their vehicle registration while they're doing their best to address the problem. I respectfully urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Brett Wilson. I'm a Maryland resident and a graduate student at the University of Baltimore. I'm here to share my experience with Maryland's Easy Pass system and toll enforcement. Several years ago, I relied on Easy Pass for my daily commute from Bel Air to Baltimore. My account was connected to my bank account for automatic withdrawals, and when I checked my account online, it appeared to be in good standing. Some time later, I had received notice that I had a phone book worth of bills. Over time, I'd spent hours calling state offices trying to figure out what had happened. During one conversation with Easy Pass, the representative told me the original amount would have been $900, but with penalties and fees, it had ballooned to $30,000. When I was eventually pulled over by the Hartford County Sheriff's Office, I learned my registration had been suspended. At the time, I still had payments on my car, and even if I sold my vehicle, it wouldn't cover the fees from Easy Pass. If my family had not lent me a car to drive and get to work, I would not have been able to make the money to earn enough just to start paying down the debt. I know Marylanders do not have the kind of support system like the one I have with my family. My case was ultimately resolved about 2 years ago, but the experience left me a lasting impression. Situations like this can push people towards financial collapse and take away their primary earning for their living, their vehicle. I want to be clear, I'm not trying to avoid paying tolls. I simply want to see a process that reduces the confusion, worry, and administrative burden when problems occur and ensures that tolls debts remain tied to what is actually owed rather than growing into an overwhelmingly financial obligation. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Great. Seeing no witnesses, seeing no questions for these witnesses, that ends the hearing on House Bill 12. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have one virtual. I apologize. Heather Gary, are you with us? There you are.
Yes, sorry. I was just waiting my turn. My name is Heather Gary, and I am a substance abuse counselor working 2 jobs. I have 7 years in recovery, and I'm also the primary financial provider for my family. Excuse me. At the start of COVID-19 pandemic, I was deemed an essential worker. I was told crossing the Key Bridge would be free of charge. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and I did not receive toll bills for quite some time. When they eventually arrived, I immediately began, excuse me, I immediately began making payments because I wanted to handle the situation responsibly. However, as soon as I believed I was caught up, additional bills continued to appear. My husband and I had to make difficult choices for our family. Our autistic son was experiencing ongoing bullying, and for his safety and mental health, we made the decision to homeschool him. That meant choosing which parent would remain at home, and I became the sole financial provider. When faced with paying tolls or paying our rent, utilities, groceries, and therapy-related expenses, we chose our child and our home. Over time, these tolls escalated into an unmanageable amount. I have made numerous phone calls, spoken with supervisors, and gone to court trying to resolve this. Despite my efforts, my registration has been suspended, and Easy Pass now claims I owe nearly $100,000. That amount is simply impossible for a working family like mine. I am not trying to avoid responsibility. I have asked for payment plans and a reasonable path forward, but the only payment plans offered by CCU are in the amounts I cannot even touch. I rely on my vehicle to work, to care for my son, and to maintain my recovery. This offers fairness and a chance for families like mine to correct mistakes without being financially destroyed. I respectfully urge a favorable vote.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gary, and thank you for waiting. I thank you for sharing your story, both of you, and Delegate Terrassa for bringing this issue to our attention. I haven't heard these kind of numbers before, so it's definitely an issue to look at closely. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Right. Seeing none, this ends the hearing on House Bill 1283, and we're going to move now to Delegate Ruth, House Bill 1338, Motor Vehicles, Driver's Licenses, Eligibility. And Delegate Ruth, if you have a panel, they may come up with you, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
And don't worry, I'll be back.
Oh, we look forward to it, Delegate Terrassa. And of course, we also miss you, Delegate Ruth, in our committee, and welcome you back.
This one's not. Are these just these two? There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, it's great to be back again. I'm here, for the record, Delegate Sheila Ruth, here presenting HB 1338. HB 1338 is about removing barriers to opportunity that are unintended consequence of Maryland's graduated driver's license system. I'm going to frame the issue and then turn it over to my panel to fill in the details. My senator and I learned about this issue a few months ago from a nonprofit in our district, National Center for Institutions and Alternatives, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, that conducts workforce development training for good-paying careers such as HVAC and automotive. The people who take their training often come from difficult circumstances. They may be economically disadvantaged or trying to rebuild a life after incarceration. Some of them don't have a driver's license due to life circumstances, and as a part of the process, they fulfill the requirements to get a driver's license. But Maryland's graduated driver's license system mandates that everyone, even adults, no matter the age, has to have a provisional license for 18 months before getting a full driver's license. So they work hard, do everything that they need to do, and graduate from the program eager to start their new career, only to find out that they can't get employed because the business's insurance companies won't insure anyone with a provisional license. So after all that work, their progress is stalled, and they have to wait 18 months before they can be employed in their new career. For those of us with the luxury of time, 18 months may not sound like a lot of time, but many of the people graduating from these programs don't have the luxury of time. They need good-paying jobs now and can't afford to wait 18 months. The delay has practical and psychological consequences. All skills erode if we don't use them, and 18 months is a long time for newly learned skills to erode. And the discouragement of the wait or the need to find a job now may cause some to give up on their budding career. For those rebuilding their lives after incarceration, it could also contribute to recidivism. I am sympathetic to MVA's concerns about safety in their letter of information. That is their mission, and of course we should all be concerned about safety. But as you will hear from other witnesses, there is no evidence that requiring adults to have a provisional license for 18 months makes us safer. Under this bill, adults would still be required to fulfill all the other requirements. MVA suggests doing a study. But our own governor has said that we do too many studies and that those can be a delay to taking effective action. The people who are impacted by this have already faced too many barriers in their life, and delaying action on this will be one more barrier that will leave too many people behind. I'm open to discussion about amendments. Of course, I'm always open to discussion about amendments. If removing the provisional license requirement altogether is too much, is there a middle ground? Can we reduce the length? Are there other safeguards we can put in place? Let's have a conversation about that, but we need to stop leaving people behind. And finally, I want to leave you with the words of the great Langston Hughes in his poem, Harlem. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? I ask for a favorable report. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Delegate Ruth,
for sponsoring House Bill 1338, which is about aligning Maryland's driver's license system with workforce realities. My name is Carol Largo. I am the CEO of the National Center on Institutions and Alternatives. Through our vocational training center in Baltimore City, we train approximately 250 adults each year in high-demand trades, including HVAC, commercial driver's license, and automotive technology. Our vocational training center graduates who complete the required driver's education, supervised practice hours, and pass road tests must still wait 18 months before they receive their full driver's license, because Maryland requires all first-time drivers, regardless of age, to hold a provisional license. Maryland is one of the only states that requires this. In the Baltimore region today, there are hundreds of open trade jobs, many paying $30 or more per hour. All these employers require employees to have a full license, and that's required because of their insurance. As a result, otherwise qualified adults are unable to begin working in the careers that they train for. This bill removes a waiting period, not safety standards, and helps Maryland adults enter high-demand careers more quickly. We respectfully request a favorable report.
Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the committee. My name is Brendan Hellwig. I co-authored a report published this week by the ABLE Foundation on driver's license barriers to employment in Baltimore. I'm here to share what we found and why it matters, and why this bill matters. Maryland's provisional licensing system was enacted in 1998 to reduce crash risk among teen drivers. That was sound policy, and HB 1338 preserves it. What it addresses is the unintended consequence of applying that same 18-month requirement to adults, a population the original law was never primarily designed to address. 3 facts frame why this matters. First, Maryland is an outlier by far. In at least 40 states, an adult who passes the road test receives a full license with no provisional waiting period. The factors driving our fatality trends, impaired driving, urban density, and long commutes, have nothing to do with whether a 20-year-old has held a provisional license for a year and a half or goes directly to a full license like our neighbor states that share our roads. The levers that matter for safety are enforcement, infrastructure, and impaired driving prevention, and we should work on those. Second, provisional status creates a direct employment barrier. Employers in HVAC, logistics, and commercial trades require a full license for insurance purposes. In the past year alone, nearly 10% of NCIA's trainees were denied jobs solely because of provisional status for positions paying up to $30 an hour or more. That's about $140,000 of tax revenue per year from NCIA graduates alone lost. And third, this burden falls hardest on those who can least afford it. Our report found that driver's licenses carry the widest racial and economic disparity of any employment barrier measured in the Baltimore region out of 29 categories. HB 1338 preserves every safety requirement. It simply allows adults who have met every competency standard to receive a full license and get to work. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jaden Jones. I am a 24-year-old and a graduate of the automotive program at the NCIA Vocational Training Center. I completed my training and earned my certificates and passed the road test. However, I currently hold a provisional license. Automotive jobs require driving customer vehicles, and employers' insurance policies require a full driver's license. Since graduating, I've interviewed at Jiffy Lube, Midas, and Prep Boys, and I was not hired because I have a full license. I am legally allowed to drive and completed all required educational and testing, but because of the 18-month period, I cannot begin working in the trained field that I was trained in. I'm currently looking to marry my longtime partner at the end of the year. However, because of the 18-month period, it's been a hindrance in getting the required funds for the wedding and for our honeymoon. This bill does not remove any safety requirements. It simply allows adults who have met all requirements to work. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Eric Brown, and I'm the Program Director of the Vocational Training Center at NCIA. At the Vocational Training Center, we serve Marylanders who are determined to change the trajectory of their lives. Many of our students come from communities shaped in generational poverty, under-resourced schools, and limited access to opportunity. Some are returning home from incarceration, seeking a second chance. Others come to us to gain professional skills needed to support themselves and their families. Despite those challenges, they show up. They commit to a rigorous training program in CDL, HVAC, or automotive technology. They complete hands-on instruction, workforce development training, and earn nationally industry-recognized certifications that prepare them for careers in high-demand fields. Our students are resilient. At the VTC, more than 80% of participants graduate, and nearly 70% secure employment after completion. However, just as our graduates reach the finish line, they encounter an unintended barrier. Even after completing driver education, passing road tests, adults still receive provisional license. For many employers, that single word becomes a disqualifier. Each cohort, we see graduates denied employment because their license is provisional rather than full, often due to companies or insurance requirements. Our students have done everything asked of them. They prepared themselves for opportunity, and we know that success happens when preparation meets opportunity. Yet our graduates stand at the door of opportunity and they are denied because of a single word on their license. This bill ensures that a procedural delay does not stand in the way of their progress. For this reason, I respectfully urge a favorable report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for this panel before we move on to the next? All right, seeing none, Delegate Ruth, you can step back and we'll have the rest of your favorables. You have a lot of favorables on this bill. I will say that in your support. Let's see, did we have a favorable virtually from Asia Green. Are you with us? Oh, she's not. She's not. Okay. All right. All right. So is there anyone still here with us that hasn't spoken? I believe maybe we've gotten everyone. We have someone missing. Yeah. Ian Jackson. Yeah, she's not here. All right. Is Ian Jackson here with us today? No. Okay. Thank you. That cleared it up. Thank you so much. All right. Seeing no questions, that ends the hearing on 1338. And we will move forward now to Delegate Young, House Bill 1344, if Delegate Young is with us. And this is Maryland Transit Administration Locally Operated Transit System Study. And you may begin whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. My name is Juwan Davidson and I serve as Chief of Staff to Delegate Young, and I'm here to testify on his behalf in support of House Bill 1344. Maryland currently funds locally operated transit systems, buses, shuttles, and community transit services through the LOTS grant program, which was codified in 2023 and expanded in 2024. As of fiscal year 2026, the governor is required to include at least $80.5 million annually in the budget for this program, a significant and growing state investment. Despite this investment, there is no comprehensive, consolidated picture of how these systems are actually performing. We are making budget and policy decisions without the full picture. This is what this bill addresses. House Bill 1344 directs the Maryland Transit Administration to conduct a statewide study for all locally operated transit systems. Current local and state cost shares, number of rides serviced, year-over-year cost increase over the past 10 years, and the impact on operations, and identification of best practices from peers and states on local transit funding models and governance structures. MTA will consult with local jurisdictions, transit advocacy organizations, and other stakeholders. A final report with findings and recommendations will be submitted to the governor and key legislative committees by December 1st of 2026 in time to inform the 2027 session. This bill matters because local transit is a lifeline. Locally operated transit systems connect Marylanders to jobs, healthcare, schools, and essential services, especially in communities not served by MTA's core Baltimore-Washington network. Costs are rising. Transit agencies are facing increasing operational and maintenance costs. Without data, we cannot understand what is driving these increases or how to address them strategically. I respectfully request this committee consider sponsoring this bill and its amendments. And hopefully we can ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1344.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Lauren Buckler. I'm the Director of Public Works and Transportation for Baltimore County. Baltimore County supports this bill with amendments. We have had active conversations with MTA for the last couple years about the LOTS funding and the way that it's calculated. The way that it's currently calculated doesn't take into account Baltimore County's full population. Baltimore County is only calculated at the population of Towson, which is about 50,000 people. Baltimore County is the third largest jurisdiction at 800,000 people. So it leaves us in a position to never be able to expand transit services, which are critically important based on all the other testimony you've heard today in this session. People that are on provisional license, people that aren't on provisional licenses, people that have tickets, people that can't pay tolls. If they can take public transit, they can avoid all those other issues that we heard about today. But we're not in a position to expand in Baltimore County until we're counted as the third largest jurisdiction. So we support this bill with amendments to include population counts in the study as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is John DeKlusky. I represent the Transportation Association of Maryland. We are the statewide trade association for public transit in our state. We represent all agencies from Garrett County in the west, town of Ocean City in the east, and everyone else in between. I'm speaking in support of House Bill 1344. Our basic argument is that good decisions cannot be made without good data. American public transit agencies spend a lot of time gathering and collecting data about the trips they provide, the money they spend, making sure that they're in full compliance with all state and federal requirements. But unfortunately, there has not been, during all of my time with TAM, over 11 years now, a single decent study coming out of MTA that covers the full picture of local transit funding. The last study that covered any portion of this was in 2021, and that only focused on the smaller issue of non-emergency medical transportation. And what is more, that study took place in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic, all of the disruptions that led to service interruptions and service declines, and it also took place during a time when there was a great deal of emergency federal funding flowing through the transit systems. That funding is gone. The systems are now acclimating to a new normal. And beyond that, we have all had over 6 years now of extreme inflation in capital prices and in operating costs. We know that nationally, costs for vehicle bodies have gone up by over a third. And I can tell you anecdotally, for many agencies, increased that by a factor of 2. It's for these reasons, among others, the Transportation Association of Maryland favorably urges a favorable report on House Bill 1344. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Palmer, Transit Administrator for County Ride, Queen Anne's County. We are the public transit system for Queen Anne's County. We also service parts of Kent County, Caroline County, Talbot County, and Anne Arundel County. In the last few years, our operating funding through the state has been flat with rising costs that we occur with wages and benefits. Our state capital funds have also been cut, and with the rising costs of buses and vans, it's been harder for us to purchase new vehicles when we utilize the useful life service that the state mandates to us. In Queen Anne's County, our ridership has grown, especially for workforce rides. We know that there's an essential need in our county and across the state. It's becoming more expensive to offer this service. I believe that HB 1344 will provide the data needed to show the issues in our county along in the state. I'm excited that this committee is taking the needed steps to resolve this through the collecting of critical information, and understanding the scope of the problem to fix the problem. HB 1344 helps identify the funding shortfalls and will help the future local transit funding. The passing of this bill will help assure us adequate state resources of funding that will allow us to better serve not only the residents of our county, but across the state.
Thank you so much for your testimony and for bringing this bill on behalf of Delegate Young. Hi, Ms. Buckler, good to see you again. This is certainly something that we have talked about in Baltimore County for a while because we are seriously underfunded compared to other jurisdictions. We have a lot of study bills in here. You know, I like this one because it might address one of my key issues. And this may not be fair to ask you because you're presenting on behalf of Delegate Young, but what about this study bill will help us get to the point where areas like Baltimore County that don't already have the people on their locally operated transportation system would then be eligible for funding? Because my concern is that the problem that we had discussing equitable lots funding in the past might not be solved with this study. Can you tell me how it might be?
So Baltimore County's hopes is that, you know, it uncovers some of these data like you just heard from some of these other panel members. So historically, there wasn't necessarily a basis to this lots funding. Is basically the information we've gotten back from MTA. They plugged and played, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but here we are with a calculation methodology to equal the amounts of the funding that the jurisdictions were getting, which is why Baltimore County is plugged in as 50,000 residents, because that's how you got to the $1 million that Baltimore County gets. No other county is plugged into the formula at that volume of their population. The only other county where there is something like that occurring is Anne Arundel County. And because they also have the city of Annapolis, the city of Annapolis counts as a line item, and Anne Arundel County counts as a line item. Baltimore County doesn't have any municipalities. When you add up the population of the city of Annapolis and the population of Anne Arundel County, it actually comes out to more than the total population of both of those jurisdictions. So why that is the case, I can't answer that question. We haven't gotten straight answers on that. Our hopes is that looking at some of this data with a new lens and looking at some of the cost efficiencies with a new lens, we can come up with an equitable way to do this formula and account for actual populations within the state. So we're hopeful. You know, it's not a silver bullet, but it gets us closer to that silver bullet.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I would hope that the language you could look at the language very closely to make sure that you're going to get the answers that you might need to move forward with those plans. Delegate Noraki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Buckler, it's good to see you as well. My question is it Towson because that's where the loop is now? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around why Towson, why not anywhere else in the county? Is that the reason for Towson, or?
Correct.
Okay.
So the loop is the circulator that serves Towson. You know, honestly, the most popular stops are on the two extremes of the loop, which to me says people outside of Towson are driving in and then getting on the loop and using it to access hospitals, universities, in and around Towson. But we're only counted as those that live within Towson.
And the Vice Chair knows this much better than I do, so I'm just trying to understand these issues. What is the reason, what's the sort of factor of not being able to create a new system, or to extend? I know that there's sort of a bias against that in the law with how it's structured right now. Could you explain that to me one more time here? I know you've talked about this at CTP meetings and things like that, but I just kind of want to understand that again one more time, please.
Sure. Thank you for following along with this conversation over the last year. I appreciate the question. So all the jurisdictions are counted as where they are currently providing service. Historically, Baltimore County did not have any type of transit system. We opened the loop 3-4 years ago, which has been great. We've done studies to expand that to the Owings Mills area, to the Catonsville area, to the Dundalk area, but we can't move past that study phase without assistance. So we can't chicken or the egg. We can't provide the service. We have the backup that the service is needed. There's entities within those areas that would fully support and embrace the service. We have the population. One of the other key areas we have been in major talks about with MTA is Essex to Dundalk. Right now, Dundalk is one of our major employment centers with Trade Point Atlantic and all the jobs that have opened there. Unfortunately, Essex is one of our areas with some of the lower employment numbers. To get from Essex to Dundalk on public transportation through the MTA takes, I think it's over an hour and 20 minutes. If you drive it, it takes 15 minutes. So how do we get people from where they need jobs to where there are jobs? And if we could do some type of circulator that just took you right back and forth to those areas and ran like we run in Towson every 15 minutes, we could get people to these jobs. But we need a different structure and a different way of looking at this. So I understand this is just a study at this point, but hopefully it gets us to a better structure to serve people that need to get to places.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing no more questions, then let's see. That'll end the hearing on House Bill 1344, and next up will be House Bill 1374. Delegate Solomon. And Delegate, you may begin whenever everyone is ready to go. Welcome to the ENT Committee.
I was going to say, I know, I miss my friends here. I spent a lot more time up here when I was on the ENT Subcommittee on Appropriations, and this is my first bill here this session. Nice to see you, Madam Chair, and some new faces and familiar friends. I am here, for the record, Delegate Jared Solomon presenting House Bill 1374, Highway User Fee, or Highway Use Fee, excuse me. And this is actually a retread of a bill that you all heard last year when we were having very robust conversations this time a year ago around different ideas and different ways in which we could backfill and fill a hole in our big transportation trust fund. And because of the work of this committee and our partners on Ways and Means and the Appropriations Committee last year, we got to a really good place. But we sort of got to, I think we called it a state of good repair level, right? We're able to maintain what we've got, but we don't really necessarily have the money yet for big new investments that we know we need. And so we wanted to bring this bill back to continue the conversation on an idea that we think addresses probably the biggest shortcoming that we have in our TTF right now, which is that the gas tax isn't cutting it anymore. It's not cutting for the state, it's not cutting at the federal level. And the biggest issue, we talk about EVs and hybrids, but the really big reason why the federal gas tax has been declining for decades, and the gas tax writ large has been declining for decades, is the fact that your average Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, insert sort of mid-sized sedan that is incredibly popular is now, 4 to 5 times as fuel efficient as it was 5-10 years ago. Instead of getting 20 miles to the gallon, it's getting 40, 50 miles to the gallon, which is great, right? That is something that we should be celebrating for the climate, for our environment, for a whole host of different reasons. But it's not something to be celebrated because we have predicated the way that we fund transportation projects from transit, for those of you who love it, to roads and tunnels and bridges to those of you that don't have the transit. The way that we choose to fund all of that is primarily through the gas tax. And so if we're not doing something to update our gas tax, we are setting ourselves up for a future hole and for future shortcomings when we know we have incredible investment needs in every corner of the state. In my jurisdiction in Montgomery County, in Baltimore City, in our rural jurisdictions, everywhere, we know when we go to the road show, none of us are ever happy because we don't get what we know our communities need on the transportation side. So fast forward to this idea, which is literally wholesale based on a program that is currently in existence in Virginia. They are the only other state in the country that uses the particular model that we have here. It's been wildly successful. Nick Donahoe, who was the then Assistant Secretary under Governor Northam, helped design this program, and we worked with him to put this bill together 2 years ago. He's doing pretty well because he's gotten a promotion. He is now the new Secretary of Transportation under Governor Spanberger. And so what this bill does is basically tries to create a much more fair sort of supplement to the gas tax. and it takes the average fuel efficiency numbers, and if you can't follow along, we break out the way to do this calculation in the testimony that we've submitted. But essentially what it does is it takes the average fuel efficiency of a car registered in the state of Maryland. We know MVA has that data, and you're going to hear from one of our panelists who, from the Regional Transportation Board that the state is part of, that has been helping them calculate this data and worked with Virginia. We know what that fuel efficiency number is. In the bill, it's 25. I don't think it's changed too much from when we did this last year, but it would be calculated based on each year's number. And then they take the average, the fuel tax, and essentially take the average number of miles that are driven, which is about 11,000 or so. And essentially, it's then an 85% discount. There's an 85% multiplier. It's a 15% discount. And whatever, if your car is more fuel efficient than the average car registered in the state of Maryland, you're going to pay a small extra fee each year when you register your car to supplement what you're not paying in a gas tax. I think in Virginia, it averages out to like $10 or $11 a year. If your car is less fuel efficient than the average car, so this means this is not a regressive tax, you don't pay anything. And there's a really good chart that we included. I did not update this for this year's numbers, but we put this together last year, where it shows when you look at some of the most popular models of vehicles on the road today, and you just compare the newest version, which again, last year was the 2024 model, and you compare it to 10 years prior in 2014, you compare it to the 2004, and then you compare it to the 2024 hybrid model, you can see that even if you're not purchasing the hybrid, even if you're just purchasing the newer vehicle, for folks who can afford to buy a new vehicle that is much more fuel efficient, you are getting, in some instances, at least in every model, you're getting a 25% savings on your gas tax per year, just based on fuel efficiency numbers. So you're already saving money if you have that new car. Somebody who doesn't have the money to go out and buy a newer model, they are paying significantly more gas tax every time they fill up because their car's just not as fuel efficient. So this is also fundamentally about equity. It's about leveling the playing field. The other thing that this bill does is it would repeal the EV and hybrid fee that we created, because we think this is a much better model and a much easier to explain and very clear. You know, if we're talking about fairness, right? EVs, hybrids, they're using our roads. They're not, hybrids obviously do use some gas, so it wouldn't just be a zero denominator. For an EV, obviously it would be, but that EV fee is pegged essentially to what the average Marylander who's driving the average fuel efficient car and is filling up an average rate is paying. So there's a very clear connection, right? It's not just, we decided to peg a fee and we moved forward with it. So we think this bill is a much better system. It's been incredibly effective in Virginia. It's been on the books now for about 6 or 7 years. I think they're up because obviously as cars get more fuel efficient, the revenue does grow. But again, as your car gets more fuel efficient, you're spending less in gasoline. So it's not as if we're adding a new fee onto somebody. Your car, again, if you look at this chart, if you buy a new model, you are saving at least, based on our calculations, 25%, if not more, on your fuel. And again, that's just the new model. That's not even taking into account the hybrid or the EV. And so what's great about this is because it grows over time and it is a sustainable source of funding, you can then bond against it. And so Virginia has used this, and we see time and time again, I hate lifting up our neighbors to the south, but they have made investments in their roads and bridges. They've made huge investments in transit, in their VRE lines. It seems like every other month they're announcing a new rail line that they're building or an additional expansion of an existing one. And so what we did in this bill that is different from last year's, because otherwise we just literally updated the numbers and the dates, is we earmarked this funding to go to MARC Rail. And I know there's a broader conversation. We always have this debate in appropriations. Do we want to specifically segment out funding in parts of the TTF, or do we just want it to go to the TTF? I would defer to you all on that, but I wanted to make the point here that we have a wonderful regional rail system that literally touches almost every part of Maryland, including Hagerstown and Western Maryland. I know our colleagues in all corners of the state would love to see a more robust MARC rail system, and currently we don't have the investments for it. It's not a ton of money to get all-day bi-directional service on the Brunswick line, for example, in my jurisdiction, that then runs to Western Maryland, in addition to a Hagerstown spur, which we know is really important. It would only be like $2 billion, which sounds like a lot, but when you take that over the 10 years it would take to build the facilities to get there, that's only $200 million a year for a system that could literally move hundreds of thousands of Marylanders and spur economic growth that we can't, it's hard to even quantify. It would be so much. Meanwhile, we're talking about potentially massively widening 270, which will cost billions of dollars. So, sorry, I know that's a lot. Appreciate your indulgence, and we'll turn it over. Do you want to do questions now, or do you want to wait until the panelists?
Why don't we hear your two panelists, and then we'll come back to you.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Great. Madam Chair and fellow members, my name is Dr. Trish Hendren, and I'm the Executive Director of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, and a proud Marylander, born and raised. So today, every time we fill up with gas, a few cents per gallon go towards maintaining our roads and bridges. However, as vehicles are going farther in a tank of gas, and some don't use any gas at all, that link between use and payment is fraying. For example, our projections show in 2030, 85% of Maryland's gas tax decline is due to vehicles getting better gas mileage. This is not an electric vehicle problem. Because of this, Maryland and other states are exploring a mileage-based usage fee, or MBUF. Instead of paying on fuel consumed, drivers would pay based on how many miles they actually drive. Drive less, pay less. You drive more, you pay more, like how we pay for utilities at home. This idea can sound crazy. People think, am I going to be tracked? Will I pay more as a rural driver? These are very valid concerns and why we've done detailed work to get some answers. So here's what we found. Under MBUF, people in rural areas would pay less than they do now. Why? Today, how much you pay depends on how much fuel your vehicle uses, and rural drivers on average have larger, less fuel-efficient vehicles. For example, if I live in Smithsburg and drive a 2015 F Ford 150, kind of a dream of mine, I'm paying about $20 in state fuel tax per month. Under MBUF, this would go down by over $3 a month. Privacy concerns are grounded in MBUF being unknown. However, once people experience MBUF through pilots, privacy concerns go down. Why? Offering choices that do not require location and having strict data privacy protections in place. So whether or not you think MBUF sounds like a good idea or a bad idea, I'm here to invite you to experience it firsthand. So the Coalition is hosting a multi-state MBUF pilot, and we invite everyone to go to our website to learn more and potentially enroll. Thank you.
Madam Chair Guyton and fellow committee members, my name is Baruch Feigenbaum. I'm the Senior Managing Director of Transportation Policy at Reason Foundation, a think tank that has been advising policymakers about transportation issues for the last 40 years. Given that the largest transportation funding source, the fuel tax, is no longer a fiscally sustainable option, 4 states have begun the transition to permanent mileage-based user fee programs: Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Virginia. The Maryland proposal is modeled on Virginia, in part because Virginia's program is the largest, with almost 30,000 drivers enrolled. The program generates $80 million in revenue for transportation purposes. The success is because Virginia's program provides drivers a range of reporting options and the ability for all types of fuel-efficient vehicles to participate. It addresses both today's problems, which are fuel-efficient vehicles, and tomorrow's, electric and other types of powertrains. But I do think there is still room for improvement on the Virginia plan. Maryland could incorporate lessons from Utah, whose revenue now exceeds its costs by using quarterly reporting, odometer capture by smartphone, and emerging telematics. Utah was able to reduce its administrative costs by 64% when it eliminated plug-in devices. Maryland could adopt Oregon's privacy protection by storing all mileage data on the vehicle, adopting data retention policies that destroy data in a matter of months, and mandating a court order to access it. Maryland could examine Hawaii's approach, which began with a pilot program and expands it across the fleet over a 10-year period. Vermont, which is close to adopting a permanent program, may have additional lessons for EV penetration. And Washington, which studied outreach, lessons for communicating with the public. Maryland has a major transportation funding shortfall, and MBUFs are one potential solution. I encourage lawmakers to look at what Virginia has done, as well as other states, which might be helpful when considering next moves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe I had Brittany Baker on your panel as well. Is she here?
I was going to say, she got unfortunately stuck in the Senate. Can I just, there was one other thing that I did want to mention that I completely forgot. I was so intent on explaining this formula. The other piece of the bill, to the testimony of our panelists, it authorizes MDOT to create a mileage-based user fee pilot program. There is no requirement for anybody to participate in that. You would be exempt from this small fee if we were to establish a system if you wanted to enroll in the pilot program. But to the point of our panelists, it's an opportunity to give MDOT the ability to create something that we could decide if that ultimately is a direction that we would want to go as a state. This just creates the pilot program and creates some parameters for that pilot program, but it's not a requirement that you would then have to enroll. And again, that's what Virginia did. You could exempt from this fee if you enrolled in the pilot program.
All right, thank you for that explanation, Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I noticed that you did mention communicating with the public. I got a significant amount of angry mail about the higher registration fee when we raised it for EVs and plug-in hybrids. People felt that they had done the right thing and were being punished for it. So what we did not do well was to explain what that fee was, which was actually half, right? So, and I did write a letter to Administrator Neiser about this, and they did start to include something on the bills, but it was wordy, and I don't think it satisfied users. So I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, Delegate Ziegler, thank you. That's an excellent point. I would wholeheartedly agree with you, and I think to a certain extent, it's not, the fee is not necessarily tied to a specific calculation. And so what I like about this, and I went sort of down a deep, dark rabbit hole with Virginia to see what the public sentiment was when this rolled out. And it was fairly muted, actually. But I think for us, it's better policy to be able to say, we have an EV fee, we have a hybrid fee, and it is specifically tied towards, again, what the average Marylander is paying in gas. Because even if you're doing the right thing, if you have just a pure economic interest, it's usually cheaper overall because you're not paying for fuel, you're not paying for the regular maintenance that a gasoline engine is normally you're normally responsible for, but you're still using the roads. But I think to be able to say, here's a calculation, and actually the table that I included in my testimony, there's something very similar on the Virginia website that actually breaks down scenario of if you drive this car, this is what you're paying based on the average cost in the state of Virginia at this time. And if you have this car, this is how much you're saving. So it's very clear that this isn't about getting more money or a gotcha. It's just saying, you're paying less in fuel. We've made the decision that it's based on a fuel tax, and this is the supplement if you're not buying fuel.
Thank you. It's a great idea. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Delegate Solomon, for this really interesting and promising bill. Thank you also to your panelists. I appreciate your intent, the intent of the bill, and it's to, if I'm understanding right, it is to replace our ultimately, fading, increasingly useless gas tax funding model with a road use fee. Take me back and explain again, how is this different from vehicle miles traveled?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Delegate Lewis. So it's actually sort of, no pun intended, a hybrid of kind of how you've described it. So the use fee, the highway use fee, which is the bulk of this bill and the formula, is really a way, it's almost sort of a bridge. It's saying, we don't think I think in 10 or 20 years, we're probably going to be in a place where we have replaced writ large. There was a lot of conversation in the last surface reauthorization bill at the federal level. The chair of the House committee actually tried to get a user fee program in there, vehicle miles traveled program, excuse me, getting my vernacular mixed up. And it ultimately wasn't successful, but Congress is in the process of reauthorizing the surface transportation bill. It may be done this year. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years already. And I imagine there's going to be a very robust conversation again because federal revenue is not keeping up. So in probably 10 years, we may just be vehicle miles traveled, period. As technology catches up, but right now it's actually really expensive. There's a lot, I think depending on how you do it, it's cheaper, but in some of the ways where you're tracking like every single mile, it almost costs more for the state to set up like a system to track everything and the companies that are doing this than it would generate any new revenue, and you're trying to sort of keep it cost neutral anyway. And if it costs $20 million a year for the service system and the data, tools, you're actually costing more money. So what this would do is it create this user fee as we transition potentially for the next 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, and would give MDOT the structure to create a pilot program for vehicle miles traveled so that when we're ready to potentially make that transition and we see what's going on in other states, we could potentially eliminate the user fee, move to a vehicle miles traveled program, and just replace our gas tax writ large.
So again, a bridge to vehicle miles traveled in the sort of medium to long term?
Exactly, if that's what ultimately MDOT and the General Assembly chooses to do, but at the very least, we would have a pilot that would allow us to see, they've done a very small pilot, but this would be a much bigger, again, Virginia's got 30,000 people enrolled. That's something you can actually measure.
And my last question, thank you for the answer, if I may, Madam Chair. I'd like to return to Delegate Ziegler's observation that, and this is so common among implementers, often not good at communicating. So would you consider language that would require MDOT to do a robust, more effective communication about the purpose of the different fee structure, and maybe even consider another name for it, like user fee? It's just to consider that. People who do comms can help us with that. But,
I was going to say the smarter people on the word wizards.
Yeah, some people are just really naturally good at that. We need their help. Would you consider a language like that would improve the ability to communicate with the public what this means, how their contributions or sacrifice, the changes that they experience have a purpose that is to deliver improvements for them?
Absolutely, and I will say I think our trust fund model is really good, because when I've had those conversations with folks, because I think we've all gotten them, it's easier to say, well, this fee or this, whatever we call it, or the new registration increases, they go directly to the trust fund, which means they are going directly back into transportation. They're not just going into the general fund where we can move them around. And so I think that in and of itself helps when you explain that to people. But you're right, I think we sometimes fall down on the job of messaging.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Delegate Lewis. Delegate Anderson.
Yes, ma'am. You spoke about the, thank you, Madam Chair. You spoke about the rural areas would get money back because they traveled less.
Yeah, so I'll defer to Trish on that, but the long and short of it is often vehicle miles traveled programs, which again, this creates a pilot, but if we were to move to a system like that, because they tend to drive longer distances, it actually means they pay a lot more in gas. And so when you move to a vehicle miles traveled program, it seems weird, but all of the, and I'll defer to Trish, she'll give you more hard numbers, they actually wind up spending less because they have less fuel efficient vehicles, and so they spend a lot more at the gas tank.
Okay.
So thank you, Delegate, for the question. So I'll just add, it does sound totally counterintuitive, because you would think in rural communities they're driving longer distances for their day-to-day life, which they are. So what we're saying is comparing how much fuel tax they're paying today, driving those distances, and on average, larger, more fuel inefficient vehicles, they are paying more today with a fuel tax than they would tomorrow under a distance-based approach. So it logically doesn't make sense at first, but when we run the numbers in Maryland, Pennsylvania, all across the country, it's the same, that there will be a decline on average for rural households. That's a really important part of communicating and talking to the public about what this would mean for their personal households.
Thank you for that great educational moment.
Yeah, I had the same thought when we were at the NCSL conference a few years ago, had a day-long seminar on vehicle miles traveled program, which was fascinating for all you transportation nerds, which is most of you on this committee. And then when they presented the data on that, I had the same reaction.
You've got Delegate Baker excited now. Delegate Baker.
Well, not really, but thank you, Madam Chair. Anytime I hear about taxes, especially in Maryland, my guard goes way up. Okay, so I live up in Washington County outside of Hagerstown, Maryland. I can be in West Virginia in 3 miles, in Pennsylvania in 3 miles. So how would the mileage adjustment be made on my vehicle if I spend a lot of time in West Virginia driving?
Yeah, so it's actually sort of, I mean, it depends ultimately on what type of a system. Thank you for the question, because it's a good one. And actually is kind of relevant to, I'm in Montgomery County, but I can be in Virginia, I can be in DC, you know, in 10 minutes, depending on where I'm going. And, you know, with all the apps that we do around fuel, I sometimes, you know, depending on where I am, I'm going to fill up where it's the cheapest. I think most people do that. So if you did a vehicle miles traveled program that, you know, tracked every mile that your car used, then you could make the argument, well, I'm driving in another state, but that is just clearly, you know, and that's probably the most data intensive and the most costly. Again, as I mentioned, there are some states or some systems that the input to just even set up the system is really expensive. You could also just you record the mileage the year when you register your car, next year when you register the car, you pay your tax based on the difference in your odometer. You could argue that I drive to DC, maybe I only fill my gas tank up in DC. Maybe DC's gas tax is less. Again, where I live in Kensington, I can be in the district in 15 minutes. So maybe I never pay any gas tax in Maryland because I'm not filling up in Maryland because I have the opportunity in Virginia or in DC. So even the gas tax system is imperfect. It's collected solely on where you fill your tank. So I think it would depend on the model, which again, I think is important for MDOT to create a pilot to figure this stuff out.
Right, thank you so much. Do you get your questions answered, Delegate Baker, or do you have another?
Well,
you may, if you'd like.
It was an okay answer, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's, again, you know, you
if
may
I put 40,000 miles, just say 30,000 miles on my vehicle and 20,000 of them's driven in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, I shouldn't be paying for 20,000 miles of driving in 2 other states versus the 10,000 in Maryland.
That's true. I would argue, I mean, you may not, you're sort of paying for it now. And again, it depends on the system. Yeah, it depends on the system.
I'm satisfied with that now because it's what I know and it's what I'm used to.
Well, I was going to say,
when I'm in West Virginia or Pennsylvania, I buy gas there also.
And I'm sure that you all can talk offline about this as well. It looks like that Ms. Baker got here just in the nick of time. So if you'd like to, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, members of the committee. I'm happy to be here in robust support of this bill. I apologize for my tardiness. I was testifying in the Senate. But what I really like about this bill and why I'm here again to testify in support is because this bill helps to envision a decarbonized future. We recognize that fuel-efficient vehicles and fully electric vehicles also use the roads. And so we do need to start to think of ways that they can support funding into the Transportation Trust Fund to keep those roads maintained. And so I'll just keep it brief today, and we're happy to be in support.
All right, any additional questions? Okay, thank you. We do have additional informational testimony, favorable amendment testimony from Michael Sanderson from MACO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. Pleased to be before you with support amendments on this bill. Counties were at the table with the creation of the Train Commission a couple of years ago that was starting to get into models along these lines. How would we think about the next wave of supporting our transportation infrastructure? We know we need some novel ideas. I'm not here with MACO testimony on the centerpiece of this bill. But what I will talk about is you've got a multi-decade tradition of how we fund transportation generally in Maryland. And if we're going to create a model that is essentially an extension of the gas tax, which that's what this is, right? And some sort of calculation, I think it's a novel idea, but some sort of calculation that says this is like the gas tax, but for the vehicles who are on the road and using our highways, and they're not paying the gas tax through the old means. Let's find some sort of stand-in, some sort of proxy for what those revenues would be. But for decades in Maryland, we've taken gas tax money and we've put it into the gasoline and motor vehicle revenue account. Getting transportation nerdy, I know, but that is a pocket in the Transportation Trust Fund that then gets shared with your local governments. In Maryland, the Baltimore City, your 23 counties, and your cities and towns do not have any local transportation revenues. We can't raise anything for our own roads and bridges, and that's like 5 out of every 6 road miles across the state. The only way we get funded is through our share of the state gas tax, our share of the state vehicle taxes. So if this is the direction you want to head as a matter of policy, we don't have any opinion on what mode of the state structure you put the money into or what happens within the state side. But from your local government's point of view, if it walks like gas tax and talks like gas tax, run it through the sharing formula just like the gas tax.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mako? Okay, that concludes the bill here on House Bill 1374. We will turn to House Bill 1391. Delegate Howard.
Thank you.
Vehicle emissions inspection program, testing and inspection, grounds for failure. If you have a panel or anything, bring them up.
No, I think it's just me, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Seth Howard, and I'm pleased to present HB 1391, the Vehicle Emissions Inspection Program, Testing and Inspection, Grounds for Failure. This bill clarifies that an emissions facility may not determine whether a motor vehicle has failed its emissions test on grounds other than the vehicle has been improperly fueled, the required emissions equipment is not present, and that the motor vehicle is not in compliance with an applicable emission standard. A constituent in my district visited an emissions testing facility to ensure that her vehicle met the standards required under Maryland law. Despite taking the responsible step to bring her car in for testing, she failed the emissions test. Importantly, the failure was not due to misfueling, missing emissions equipment, or violation of Maryland emissions standards. Instead, it failed simply because her check engine light was on. For many constituents, life is busy. Taking time off work to bring in a vehicle into a repair shop, particularly for an issue that would not affect emissions performance, is not always feasible. Hardworking individuals should not be required by the state to miss work or incur any expenses for vehicle maintenance that are unrelated to whether the vehicle meets emission standards. We make our constituents' lives easier by making emissions compliance standards clear and focus on what really matters, and that's why I asked for a favorable report. Essentially, what is happening is you have several models of vehicles, and one model of vehicle may offer a safety upgrade that another model of vehicle doesn't have. Same type of car, an I versus an S on a BMW or whatever, and your proximity sensor is out. They fail you. The other vehicle, that's the same model, same make, or same make anyway, just in a different class as far as model, doesn't even have the proximity sensor. That vehicle passes. So there's really no parity, and that's what this bill seeks to do.
Thank you, Delegate. Something like that happened to me, so I understand exactly what you're saying.
It's frustrating,
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Delegate Howard. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1391.
Thank you all very much. Good seeing you guys.
You too. House Bill 1393, Delegate Nkongolo, Motor Vehicle Administration Telephone Queuing System Establishment.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Latoya Nkongolo representing District 31. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1393. This bill was introduced after a constituent contacted our office about their experience trying to reach the MVA by phone. They suggested a simple improvement used by many private companies and government agencies, allowing callers to request a callback rather than waiting on hold. House Bill 1393 would require the MVA to establish a virtual queuing system that allows callers waiting to speak with a live representative to request a return call while keeping their place in line rather than remaining on hold. According to information provided to me by the Maryland Department of Transportation, the MVA recently modernized its contact center system. Prior to the rollout, average wait times were approximately 13 minutes, and the new system has reduced average wait times to as low as 6 minutes. While this is an improvement, 6 minutes is an average, meaning as an average, meaning that during periods of high call volume, the wait time can be much longer. Importantly, the new MVA phone system already has the technical capability to provide a callback feature, but that feature has not yet been activated. The fiscal note indicates that this requirement can likely be implemented using existing resources with revenues not being affected, so there is a zero fiscal note. This bill simply ensures that Maryland residents can benefit from a feature that the system already supports. A callback option improves customer service, allows people to go about their day rather than sitting on hold, and can reduce the frustration for residents trying to resolve important issues with their license, registration, or other services. This is a practical, low-cost improvement that responds directly to a constituent's concerns and helps modernize how state government interacts with Maryland residents and improves customer service with the MVA overall. For those reasons, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1393, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. A question from Delegate Boyce.
Mr. Chair, good to see you, Delegate.
You too,
What a
Delegate.
great idea that everyone else is already doing. So I'm looking at, I can't determine through MDOT's letter if they're saying that they want to continue working through their system and then at some point do this, or they want to see through their new system if just they have better efficiencies, thereby they wouldn't then utilize the tool that they can already utilize now with the current system?
Right, Delegate, and that's a great question, and actually I had the same concern because I felt like that the letter was a little vague. You know, they provided information, but they didn't take a stance on whether they were willing to actually implement this, which is why we didn't withdraw the bill and we wanted to go ahead and move forward with it.
And I also want to be clear that according to them and the information they gave to you, the new technology that they do have can do this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, thank you, Delegate.
All right, thank you all. Have a good day.
You as well. Next, we'll call up Delegate McComas for House Bill 1421.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. I kind of get into bills because I see them on the street. So that's part of the genesis of this. So in support of 1421, I requested a task force to study pedestrian and bicyclist injuries and fatalities. But what I'm seeing is that a number of folks are riding bicycles with dark clothing at night, without good lights that you can see, without reflection, and people are walking in the streets with dark clothes on at night. And God forbid anybody hurt someone and run over somebody, because you'd have to live with that for a long time, whether you nick them or you break their legs or whatever. So anyway, with the numbers of pedestrian and bicyclist injuries on an upward trend since 2020, House Bill 1421 proposes a task force or some type of study of what bike riders and walkers can do to reduce their own negligence, which causes or contributes to accidents. We all have loved ones and that enjoy taking off on a bicycle for a leisurely ride on a sunny day. Despite the recreational purpose, the dangers should not be ignored. We are all walkers. We walk our dogs or stroll with our kids or grandkids in a neighborhood to and from the local playground or park. We park our car and walk to the venue for the street fair or the flea market or the craft show. Whenever we do this, we are at risk of injury or tragedy, especially if our activities keep us out after dark or there is a sudden weather change. Recently, I was driving just after dusk in Harford County on the side of a road close to my home. Suddenly, a bicyclist zipped by with no reflectors on his bike, wearing only dark clothing. This was not a well-thought-out action on his or her part, given the time of day and the road conditions. In 2022, there was a 40-year peak nationwide in pedestrian deaths. In 24, 31% of accident fatalities in the District of Columbia, Virginia, and Maryland combined, 102 were pedestrians and bicyclists. The Street Smart Safety Campaign, initiated in 2017 to reduce pedestrian bicyclist injuries and deaths, particularly in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. Supporting Vision Zero initiatives. The Maryland Highway Safety Office envisions 0 deaths in Maryland, but the data all seems to be sparse after 2023, despite the reported upward trend in injuries and fatalities. We need to know more and do more. On average, 1 Baltimore resident dies every week, and that is per 2017 data. In a traffic-related accident, 1 Baltimore resident is injured in a traffic-related accident every hour. 2 Maryland Institute of College College of Art students decided that an intervention was in order. These 2 graduate students conceived the Made You Look art at the right of way to reduce the troubling statistics through art. The combination of measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users is recognized by the U.S. Department of Transportation. This traffic calming artwork at crosswalks and sidewalk bump outs alert drivers' attention to pedestrians, bike riders, and other non-motorized road users. They became known as the art in the right of way. Resonating with communities where tragedies have occurred, the Made You Look project took off, and the stats showed marked improvements in 41% increase in drivers yielding to pedestrians. We have a duty to increase public awareness and improve public safety. We need to find out more ways to do so and where it is most needed. The task force would be charged with just such a fact-finding mission. Let us gather the data, reach out to communities, and seek out information from educators and local leaders. HB 1421 is the mission. The Maryland General Assembly is the launch pad. Please return a favorable report to 1421. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Delegate McComas, and welcome to the committee. Delegate Boyce, do you have a question? All right. Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to my fellow Baltimore City delegate for the courtesy. Delegate McComas, I'm happy to see you here with your bill. I remember you came to me early in session and you shared your passion and your concern for the safety of people walking, Marylanders driving, wheeling and rolling on our streets, and I really appreciate you caring about that. I also really appreciate you recognizing the incredible work of the Made You Look project, which started in the Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA, in Baltimore, and it's been adopted by the City Department of Transportation and MTA. It's really amazing. So I just want to welcome you to the transit nerd community and let you know that we are looking at a number of bills to improve pedestrian safety, and I'm glad to include you as part of the community working on that. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I'm glad I did speak with you, and I decided to just drop the bill anyway, because I think we need to do more and more, and I see kids riding bicycles on the street, and they're riding on the back wheel, and there's no headgear, and my uncle, who is now 92, was running. He had to run home to get something because the nun said, "We need you to give a ball or a baseball mitt to the kids that couldn't afford one." And so he ran home on his bicycle, and when he ran back, he didn't run. He was riding his bicycle. He hit ice and ended up in the hospital with six drills in his skull to take away the pressure, and they had to drive 5 miles an hour from Cheyenne to Denver, which is 100 miles. And, he almost died. So I'm like really conscious of kids doing crazy stuff without any, if they hit their heads, and none of them, they're all riding around and doing wheelies and no helmets at all. So really concerned about that. I think it's a personal thing with me. Plus, I got the worst whipping in my life as a kid from my mother because I was talking to a little girl across the street, and it was pretty ugly.
Thank you, Delegate.
Delegate Boyce.
Chair, thank you, delegates, so much, and I think I want to echo the chair of the subcommittee. Welcome to Transportation Pedestrian Safety Geek World. I just want to make sure I am clear about your intentions, because it seems like a fine line. I guess I just want to be sure that we're not blaming pedestrians for being hurt.
No, I think what is going on, though, is, no, we're not blaming pedestrians for being hurt. What we're concerned about is that, one, people are driving like maniacs in my jurisdiction. They're speeding, and I mean, and we have a residential area next to commercial area. And the worst thing I ever saw was a little gentleman who was in a wheelchair, who did not have feet, and he was homeless. And I saw him trying to cross on this in his wheelchair, very low in the wheelchair. He couldn't see him. He didn't have a flag or anything. And he was going across 924, which is very, very busy. And people speed like maniacs. And because he was going into the commercial area. So I finally was able to find him in Target several days later, and so he gave me his name, and I really felt like I was kind of assaulting him in a way, you know, hey, what's your name? Well, it turned out that he was from Arkansas. He did not have any feet. He was living in the field.
Sure.
Anyway, so the town of Bel Air Police Department got him enough money so he could go back to Arkansas in a better environment, so that at least, you know, because Arkansas is warmer than Maryland in the wintertime. But
Well, I know
it was frightening to see that.
Right. Well, the MDOT has a campaign to work on pedestrian safety and deaths. I'm just concerned because just as much as we want to keep pedestrians and cyclists safe, to your point, you know, we've got folks who aren't paying attention to those who are on bikes and those who are walking and those who are with, you know, physical challenges that need equipment to move around, and ensuring that just as much as we want to protect them and ensure that there are no barriers for them getting around. That's why we've got complete streets, and we've got bicycle lanes, and we've got appropriate curb cuts and light switches. I see our friends here in the audience now, so they can appropriately cross the street at a certain time. But at the same time, we do have an issue, I think, that you pointed out, that we have people who are driving too fast and then not seeing, you know, so about really how this task force can be really about a shared approach to these places versus potentially saying that we want to help these folks not get hurt when in fact they're being hurt by folks who aren't necessarily paying attention to them.
Well, the problem is a lot of these places where like the little islands are where they can cross, if a car's speeding and then they could bounce off and hit these poor people on the little island. And so everybody just kind of needs to, and we have, what do we want? We have traffic, we have traffic lights there. We also have, you know, if you're speeding through a red light or a yellow light, we have the cameras. But it's like everybody's just in a big hurry, and they just need to slow down, because if you hurt somebody, you're going to feel awful bad about it. If you kill them, you're going to feel really bad.
Great point.
And I just think that somehow, now, you know, this is a task force, and this is the committee's bill now. I just think we've got to get everybody to take a breath and slow down. And, you know, you're not going to get there any faster if you cause an accident or hurt someone.
That's
and
so
I just
true.
think that a lot of these people are very vulnerable to get hurt, and then wearing dark clothing at night, and or if it's raining out, it's very difficult to see folks.
Great points, Delegate. I'm going to let someone else have a question.
Anderson.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the bill, Delegate. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the study, because the rural communities need this bad, and we need it bad because, well, in my case, I have a farm that's right in the middle of the Seagull Century biking event with 1,200 bikers across the state, and their first encounter with farm equipment is when we're eye to eye on the road. And they think they have the right of way, and I'm sitting there covering the whole road with a piece of equipment. And we've had some verbal altercations about it, and I tell them, you might be right, but there's no value in being dead right. And there is no education program that I see that introduces bikers to the rural community and what they might encounter on rural roads. So would your study
my study can be anything that this committee wants to do because it's in your jurisdiction. I'm just giving you the proposal and unfortunately the idea, and you guys can do whatever you want to make things safer. And that's really why I did it.
I just wanted to see if we could broaden it beyond just studying the pedestrian and bicycle accidents.
You can amend that. I will not be offended if you did. I just think that this is something that we really need to focus on because what we've done is we've created bike paths on roads, at least in Harford County, which are kind of scary because what happens is they have the bike lane and then they have the traffic lane, but they also have these rather interesting what I would call a barrel pit or something, where if the bike goes off or if they hit some gravel, they can end up pitching up to 2 to 3 feet down.
I agree. They put bike paths on roads that were never intended to have a bike path on.
Right, but I'm not going to get into that because I think people like to bike. And, but I think that that's a lot of folks, that's their mode of transportation. But the problem is that cars rule the road and they need to rule the road cautiously and they don't. Everybody's speeding and it's scary.
Delegate McComas?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask you, you're interested in a friendly amendment. The vice chair of the committee, often when we have bills like this, ensures that it also includes the unicycle community. So is it okay if we amend the bill to include unicyclists? It's your husband, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, unicycles are okay in a parade, but certainly maybe not on the street. No, what's happening is the kids have two.
Hold on. The vice chair's husband uses a unicycle to travel places, so.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I am not.
I'm not going to keep this going, but it is actually legal to ride a unicycle.
Delegate Naraki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, thank you for the bill. Last year, you might have recalled, we passed a bill actually for the other gentleman from the Eastern Shore, Jay's Law, last year with respect to being able to utilize bicycles, unicycles to the vice chair as well, on sidewalks. Obviously, how would this study interact with that, with being able to keep everybody safe when they're on the sidewalk, when they're crossing through the crosswalks there? Would your study consider that, and would it consider kind of pedestrians on the sidewalk as well, keeping those folks safe there?
I don't think the sidewalk is much the problem because you can go on the parking area, you know, where the between the sidewalk and the curb, or you can go on somebody's grass, as long as you don't hit their flowers, and then they're going to get really upset with you.
Yeah, that would be a problem for sure.
I'm more concerned with the folks in the street that folks driving. And then the other problem you have is, let's say you have a big truck, okay, and then you have somebody that's on their bike, and then you have to move over because it's a big truck to pass. You know, they're going one way, you're going the other way, and you might not see the person in back of you riding the bike, and they're going to kind of try to zip through. And it just, you know, it's your bill now. I've just introduced it. You guys can trash it, or you can improve it and make it a great bill. Yeah. So I have confidence in your ability.
Well, thank you for bringing this. I think this is an important issue. I know the vice chair will probably want to take a look at the unicycle part, but thank you for bringing this bill.
Right. Thank you, Delegate McComas. We do have unfavorable in-person testimony from John Corrin, Bike Maryland and Coalition.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. John Corrin, Bicycle Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, and all volunteer 501c3. Today representing a coalition of safety advocates from across the state of Maryland. You have written testimony from us as well. I find myself in the strange position of being the safety advocate, but with an unfavorable position on this bill. In 2017, I served on the Maryland Bicycle Safety Task Force created by this legislature. It included all of the E's: engineering, enforcement, education, encouragement, emergency management. It had a robust composition of engineers, law enforcement, driver advocates, pedestrian advocates, biking advocates. So it looked at all aspects of the problem with the goal, and I appreciate the expression of concern here. There were 106 bicyclists and pedestrians killed on Maryland roadways last year. But this construct, I think, is a small subset of what's already being led by MDOT. MDOT's got a Vision Zero group, Complete Streets, Pedestrian Safety Action Program, Maryland Highway Safety Office, Pedestrian, Bicycle, Emphasis Area Team, in addition to teams on impairment, speeding, and all of the other factors that contribute to death and injury on our roads. So while I've been put most of my retirement for 13 years into safety for vulnerable road users, this bill is just a teeny sliver and disproportionately looks at the responsibility of the walkers and cyclists without looking at the whole picture. So clearly we have a role in this, but it's just one portion of the problem.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
That concludes the bill here on House Bill 1421. We're going to turn to House Bill 1446, delegate tolls, commercial drivers, instructional permits, school vehicles, knowledge test. And if you have a panelist, please bring them up.
Yes, school board member. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I just want to give you a little bit of background of HB 1446. This bill lets school vehicle trainers give the CDL knowledge test. And the Prince George's County Public School Systems, my school board member, Dr. Felton Moss, who you will hear from, came to me with an issue. We lost 75 qualified people who wanted to drive buses because they got lost within the MVA process. And it's an issue hopefully we can fix. School trainers already teach classroom instruction, highway driving, and safety standards. And this lets them also give the knowledge test. Everything else stays the same. All driving tests, safety requirements, and standards of training. They will, and this will help to include some of the backlog. This will help to get rid of some of the backlog. Our school district, PGCPS, is already seeing improvements in vacancies with openings down to under 100. But we are still losing people within the process, within the testing process. Career changers can't wait long before they can afford to get another job, and we are losing good people. But I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say, what Dr. Moss is going to say. But listen, we are saying that the school system just needs another option. Doesn't take away the process from MVA, it just gives them another option. And so with that, I will turn it over, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, to Dr. Felton Moss to give a little bit of background and more of what's happening with our school system.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today, and we thank Delegate Tolles for her leadership in advancing HB 1446, the commercial drivers instructional permits, school vehicles knowledge test. As she shared with you, we've made significant progress in Prince George's County in addressing our bus driver vacancies. You know, this is an issue across the country, but we've been able to reduce them to under 100 through our focused recruitment and streamline hiring processes under our interim superintendent, Dr. Joseph's leadership. However, as Delegate Tolles shared with you, just last year, we lost 75 qualified people who wanted to be bus drivers, not because they couldn't do the job, but because they got stuck in the MVA process and gave up. That is 75 people from our community who wanted to serve our kids. So today we're asking for this legislative body to make changes to address three critical areas. One, the bill streamlined the training pipeline by allowing candidates to demonstrate that foundational knowledge before committing to the full CDL program. Second, the bill enhances our ability to provide wraparound support during that training process. Third, the bill creates a clearer pathway for community members who want to serve the Prince George's County community. Let me say this. This process does not cut corners that we're asking for, and it does not reduce safety. We have people in our community who want to do this work, But the current process, you go to MVA for testing, you wait for appointments, you wade through paperwork, you wait for results, then finally start our training. People are coming back to work. People who are coming back to work can't wait that long. They take other jobs. But I do want to say this, we're flexible. We don't have to be the ones who do this. We're open to whatever solution comes from raising this to your attention and working with the agencies. We just need this to stop losing people in the pipeline. MVA says they'll work with us. Our contractors want to help. If we need a work group or a study or a pilot to fix this, we are here to be at the table.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor or her board member?
Mr. Chair, can I add one thing?
Of course.
Thank you so much. We are in the process of working with, as a school board member indicated, working with the Department of Transportation to figure out what we can do behind the scenes to deal with this issue. So I'm just going to ask for now that we hold on to it until we get more information. But I definitely wanted to bring to your attention and say publicly that we're working with them.
Terrific. Anybody else? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1446. We'll turn to House Bill 1381. Vice Chair Guyton, vehicle laws stopping, standing, or parking in a bike or unicycle lane or bicycle or unicycle path, prohibition.
I believe the chair just amended my bill, and that's a friendly amendment. I accept it. Yes. Absolutely will accept that one, for sure. Let's see. All right. For the record, Delegate Michelle Guyton, District 42B, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of my great committee for your consideration of House Bill 1381. You've heard this one before, folks, and this year we've made it even simpler for you. So this bill simply protects bicyclists and unicyclists from by prohibiting stopping, standing, or parking in a bike lane. That's all it does. It's consistent with keeping people safe, helping them get to work, helping them recreate, making sure that we are also exempting emergency vehicles. We have exemptions in this bill for, excuse me one second, I just want to make sure I get the list right because it's quite long. So yes, emergency vehicles, transit vehicles, so no problems with buses. Vehicles picking up or discharging individuals with disabilities, they can certainly park in that bike lane if they need to for a period of time. A vehicle that's become disabled so they can't actually drive, we don't want to be responsible for causing trouble to those folks. They're already having a bad day. And vehicles, while loading or unloading goods for pickup or delivery, and there's one exception to that. We are leaving it this year up to the locals to decide how long that will be. The longest amount of time, and that's one we negotiated last year, can be up to 30 minutes for those delivery trucks. But if locals like Baltimore City has already decided that no time is acceptable for them to be in the bike lane, we will not preempt their local control over that. We're going to leave that up to the locals. I do want to point out that this legislation puts the state of Maryland in the same posture as Baltimore City, Washington, D.C., and the state of Virginia, so that's very convenient for bicyclists in all these areas. And also there are two amendments that were in the packet. One of them from MDOT I actually really like, so I hope that the committee will adopt it. They basically suggest that we only allow them to park for deliveries and other purposes in this bill if parking is not available on that block. So even if they're delivering from Amazon, but there's a parking spot right in front of them, if they choose to park in that bike lane instead of that parking spot, then that would not be allowed under their amendment. And I think that's a great amendment. And then I did have a question from NAIP on construction vehicles, and that wasn't a conversation that we've had on this bill before, but I would certainly be willing to have some sort of carve out or time period for construction vehicles who don't have another place to park actively working on a project, but that's definitely a conversation that we need to have. So I thank you, and I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1381 to protect bicyclists, unicycles, walkers, and people driving the vehicles from dangerous conditions.
Thank you. Again, John Corrin, Bicycle Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, but again, on behalf of the Maryland-wide Coalition of Safety Advocates. We like this bill. We supported it last year. We came in favorable with amendments, which have already been taken into account, so we're in support of the bill as suggested with both the MDOT amendment and the adjustment that allows local control. So, for example, Baltimore City can retain the current local ordinance that they already have in place. As you consider this, I want you to think about two categories of people using bike lanes. I'll say the choice rider, person who decides, rather than drive, I'm going to use my bicycle. And the no choice rider, the person for whom, because of economic reasons, because of disability reasons, or because of legal reasons, cannot drive a car and has no choice but to use a bicycle or, some other micromobility device. We've got to make it safe. They have precious little safe space to get from home to destination. They may be able to use, they may get a shared use path in some areas, but typically they've got to be on the road. That bike lane is the only bit of safe space they've got. They've already got to deal with cars whizzing by, with parked cars, with doors opening, with debris. Let's not cause them to also have to deal with vehicles that are blocking their only bit of precious safe space. So we ask for your favorable view with the amendments as Delegate Guyton described. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair, and HB 1381 bill sponsor Guyton, and members of the House ENT Committee. It's John Singh again, Safe Roads, Maryland. People in all these committee hearings we participate in, when they talk about roadway safety and fatalities, injuries, crashes, there's the pools of drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians, but only one of those does the killing. Bike lanes aren't decorative paint. They're designated safety space, often the only separation between someone riding a bike and moving traffic. When a driver stops or parks in that space, even just for a minute, it forces bicyclists into the danger zones, and that's intolerable, we believe. HB 1381 establishes a clear, reasonable rule. Keep the bike lanes and bicycle paths clear. No excuses. There's no single cure-all for traffic fatalities. Maryland still loses hundreds of people each year on our roads, so progress happens incrementally, such as HB 1381. We certainly respect and appreciate your favorable report for this bill. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We do have other testimony. We have Louis Campion, Maryland Motor Truck Association, and Tom Ballantyne, NIOP Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, Louis Campion, Maryland Motor Truck Association, here in support. We did want to just acknowledge the efforts working with the sponsor on the loading and unloading amendment that we developed last year, and appreciate her incorporating that into the language in the bill this year. So we are favorable. Thank you.
Tom Ballantyne with NAIOP Maryland. We're a commercial real estate trade association here to support with amendments. Our members build, own, and operate buildings that are sometimes adjacent to the right-of-way where bike paths and bicycle lanes exist. And we just are looking for some flexibility for maintenance and construction operations, and appreciate the sponsor's willingness to work with us on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, much calmer than our last cycling bill. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1381. We will turn to House Bill 1295, Delegate Ziegler, Vehicle Laws, Fully Autonomous Vehicles. And if you have a panel, please bring them up.
Thank you. They're going to sit together. That's okay. Okay, let's see, perfect. Yeah. Do we have enough for you? Thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, members of the best committee in the House. For the record, I am Delegate Natalie Ziegler. Before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge, first of all, to thank everyone who's here from the Federation of the Blind. Really appreciate your patience and making your way here. And I also want to acknowledge that there is a lot of opposition to this bill from labor. We were not contacted until just very recently, and I do want to say Senator Love, who's the cross-file, and I have meetings set up on Monday with labor, and we also have a friendly amendment from MDOT, which would set up a labor study. So I just wanted to say that in advance. Okay, so what this bill does is it creates a framework to allow fully autonomous vehicles to operate in Maryland. And it authorizes the MVA and the Maryland Insurance Administration to establish the standards and requirements necessary for them to legally use the roads and operate safely in our state as they do in 25 other states from California to Pennsylvania. So why should we permit autonomous vehicles in Maryland? First, because they are so much safer than human drivers who cause an average of 40,000 deaths a year, not to mention life-altering injuries. As an example, Waymo, who is with us today, have data from more than 400,000 rides covering 4 million miles a week, adding up to more than 127 million miles traveled on public roads. And the data is incredible. They show 92% fewer crashes involving pedestrians, 90% fewer crashes causing a serious injury, and 81% fewer crashes with any injury at all compared to a human driver. So the great thing about autonomous vehicles, obviously, is they don't do the dumb things that people do. They don't drive drunk, they don't text while they're driving, they don't speed. Imagine what a significant reduction in crashes could do, and not just in terms of lives saved and life-altering injuries avoided, but in terms of traffic congestion, much of which is caused by those crashes. Savings in healthcare, savings in policing. So the second incredible benefit AVs can offer is freedom and independence for those who cannot or should not drive because they're blind or disabled, too old, too young. And on the off chance that someone in this audience might prefer public transportation to any individual car, autonomous vehicles offer some wonderful new possibilities, whether that be first mile, last mile connections to transit, or autonomous shuttles, such as those being tested in several cities and researched at the University of Maryland, which could bring affordable, reliable public transit to suburbs as well as underserved urban and rural areas. And last but not least, there's the business case for not leaving Maryland behind as the rest of the nation moves forward with this new industry, with its potential to attract high-tech investment, create thousands of new jobs, new companies, and public-private partnerships, while improving road safety, traffic congestion, and mobility. I look forward to your questions, and I respectfully ask for a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Chrissy Nizer, Motor Vehicle Administrator. Glad to be here today in support of this bill with the amendments that were referenced by the sponsor. As a department, we have been actively involved in this space with the Connected and Automated Vehicle Working Group that has been in existence for over a decade. We are also excited about the highway safety benefits that we believe connected and automated vehicles bring, and certainly it helps in our Vision Zero mission. We are reiterating our support and desire to work with all the partners in this space and make sure that we move forward together in a safer way. So with that, happy to be here and happy to answer any questions at the end of the panel. Thank you.
Is Tony next? Oh, okay, he's not doing it. Okay, great. Thanks. Of course, the technology chooses to fail. but it's not AV technology, I promise. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, I always love testifying in ENT, and I'm grateful to be back. My name is Ronza Othman for the record, and I am president of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. NFB of Maryland is the state's oldest and largest organization of and for blind, low vision, and deaf-blind individuals. Our members are not able to get driver's licenses, and we depend on public transportation and other means to move about our communities. The transportation options that exist are insufficient, inefficient, and costly. Independent travel for an individual with a disability is filled with indignities. Throw in the discrimination that we experience because of our guide dogs, our long white canes, our other mobility aids, and simply being disabled, and it is intolerable. But the advent of Category 4 and 5 AVs is a true game changer for people with disabilities. I don't have a guide dog, but I tend to experience at least a handful of rideshare denials each week. When the driver pulls up and sees that I'm blind, or when I text them to ask that they honk so that I know that they're there for me. Just this Tuesday, I was late to work, my second day at my brand new job, because a rideshare driver refused to take me because he said it wasn't worth the money since he could get more rides in the time it would take him to help me. Last winter, I traveled using an AV for the first time in a different state. I independently ordered the vehicle. It came to get me. It took me where I wanted to go, which was In-N-Out Burger. Then I called one to take me home. I even got it to jingle a tune so that I would know it was my particular vehicle. It did not discriminate against me because I was blind. It had no idea I was blind, and it didn't care that I was blind. Those that claim that AVs are unsafe and they get lost in airport parking lots, for example, need to realize that I've had human drivers that are unsafe, under the influence, sleepy, texting, distracted, and so on, and they've also got lost in the airport parking lot. But at least with an autonomous vehicle, I can press the help button and get assistance so that I can get out of that parking lot. AV technology is a game changer because it gives us choices to travel independently with dignity, and for that reason, I ask for a favorable report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Anthony Perez, and I represent Waymo, an autonomous driving technology company. And I should also mention I recently joined the company about 4 months ago, and before that, I was the Bronx Borough Commissioner at New York City DOT. So I'm happy to be here at the Transit Nerd Committee as well. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1295. The legislation is a vital step towards bringing the safety, accessibility, and economic benefits of autonomous vehicles to Maryland. By passing HB 1295, Maryland will join more than 25 other states in enacting a clear framework for the commercial use of fully autonomous vehicles. Waymo is a totally normal part of life for millions of Americans. We provide hundreds of thousands of fully autonomous paid passenger trips every week across 10 major U.S. areas. Our Waymo driver system travels more than 4 million miles every single week, a distance it would take an average American driver almost 300 years to complete. Our mission is to be the world's most trusted driver, and that is rooted in safety. In the cities where we operate, the Waymo driver is involved in 10 times less serious injury crashes, 12 times fewer crashes involving pedestrians. These aren't just statistics. This is a real, tangible safety benefit in the communities where we serve. This proposal would also unlock millions of dollars in investment in local jobs and infrastructure. In every city where we operate today, we work with a broad ecosystem of operations partners who build multiple AV service depots and hire people with a wide range of backgrounds and skill sets in vehicle maintenance, professional driving, fleet management, construction, and other skilled trades work, and facility security and supervision. These roles provide a stable pay and benefits, and many do not require a university degree. Our experience shows that there is a real opportunity in this industry for Marylanders of all backgrounds, now and in the future. That's why we're also investing in scholarships and technical education programs to ensure there's a pipeline to these new opportunities. HB 1295 provides a predictable, durable regulatory framework that Maryland needs to be a leader in this space and unlock the benefits of this technology. I respectfully urge a favorable report on HB 1295. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and for the record, Andrew Zirkle, here on behalf of the Maryland Tech Council. I would like to thank the chair and the committee for this fantastic opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1295. House Bill 1295 would create a much-needed legal framework in Maryland for fully autonomous vehicles, creating a pathway for motor vehicles to operate without a human driver. The bill sets standards for how these vehicles can be used on public roads and highways in Maryland and addresses necessary safety and data privacy issues. Autonomous vehicle technologies are a major area of research and investment nationwide. States that create predictable and forward-looking regulatory environments are best positioned to capture capital investments, high-skilled jobs, research partnerships, and pilot programs. AV providers, such as Waymo, are already safely serving customers in cities across the United States. Data from the sites where Waymo is currently operating is highly, highly encouraging. Clear, forward-looking policy that reduces uncertainty for innovators and demonstrates that Maryland embraces cutting-edge technology is vital. This bill will send a strong signal that Maryland intends to compete in this rapidly evolving sector. Aligning state law with future-oriented industries like autonomous systems signals to national and global tech firms that Maryland is a welcoming place to do business. This bill aligns with MTC's broader advocacy for an environment that attracts technology, life sciences, and other advanced sectors. By proactively enabling autonomous vehicles rather than restricting them, the state shows it values innovation-driven economic growth. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report on House Bill 1295. Thank you.
Institute, John Sang, Maryland Coalition for Roadway Safety. We also have Kelly Schultz in the Maryland Tech Council, but maybe that's a dupe. And Brianna January, Chamber of Progress. Welcome back, Brianna.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, esteemed committee. Brianna January with Chamber of Progress. We are a center-left tech trade association in strong support of HB 1295. And we thank the sponsor for her leadership and for bringing this bill forward. AVs have the potential to transform safety for Marylanders everywhere. Unlike human drivers, AVs do not drive impaired, they do not drive sleepy, distracted, or unengaged. Committee, between 2019 and 2023, nearly 2,900 Marylanders lost their lives in vehicle crashes, and nearly 209,000 were injured. Those were our friends, our family, our neighbors, your constituents. We don't have to live like this. Research shows that at least 90% of car crashes are caused by human error. AVs remove that human error. Some AV operators report 90% fewer serious injuries and fatal crashes. If that reduction translates to Maryland, large-scale AV adoption could prevent over 2,570 deaths and nearly 188,000 injuries in the next 5 years alone. Imagine what that would mean, not only for every day, but also for Ravens and Orioles games, for college campuses like UMD, close to where I live, for Ocean City during the summertime, for the National Harbor, for the many concerts and festivals that we host across our great state. Committee, imagine if policymakers decades ago did not adopt the safety innovations of seatbelts or proper car seats. Each one of you today has the choice here with HB 1295 to decisively and proactively improve safety in your communities and for your constituents. As a lifelong Marylander myself, I hope that you'll take that opportunity, and we look forward at Chamber of Progress to working with the committee to get this passed. Thank you.
Chairman Corman and members of the committee, my name is Robert Melvin. I'm the Northeast Region Director at the R Street Institute. We're a nonpartisan public policy research organization. I'm here in support of House Bill 1295. This measure creates a clear statewide framework for deploying highly autonomous vehicles while maintaining strong safety guardrails. Importantly, the bill internalizes risks through private insurance market. When automated driving systems are engaged, it causes insurers to evaluate real-world safety performance and price risk accordingly. Safer systems benefit from lower premiums, while poorly performing systems face higher costs, creating a continuous market incentive to improve safety. The bill also modernizes outdated equipment laws written for human drivers. Vehicles designed exclusively for AV operation shouldn't be constrained by statutes built around steering wheels and pedals. Just as important, Maryland has a serious congestion problem. The state ranks 44th nationally for congestion, and gridlock costs drivers between $638 and more than $2,100 per year, depending on where they live, though through wasted fuel and lost time. Autonomous vehicles can help reduce that by smoothing traffic flow, reducing stop-and-go driving and fuel consumption by as much as 40% when operating at the front of traffic. That means less congestion and real savings for Maryland drivers. For these reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report of House Bill 1295. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. John Seng here again, representing Safe Roads Maryland. Over the past decade, Maryland roads have annihilated a population the size of Denton, Maryland. More than 5,000 children, women, and men. If we're serious about Vision Zero, we must examine every technology that can contribute to reducing that toll. Good afternoon, Mr. Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and members of the House Environmental Committee. My name's John Seng, as I said moments ago. I'm going to touch on two angles that haven't really been reviewed this afternoon on this bill. The first is that I'll sort of introduce it by raise your hand if you drive on Route 270 and you stick to the speed limit of 55 miles per hour. That's okay, I'll put my hand down because I do, but I don't want to out the rest of you. What we'll have here with these AV vehicles are awesome examples of proper roadway hygiene on Maryland roads. One at a time, one by one, 10 more, whether it's 270 or 95 or 695, all of a sudden people will be coming across these vehicles that actually know how to drive safely. They just don't have a dangerous human person behind the wheel, which is a great improvement. The next issue that I want to, so the question is before us is not whether autonomous vehicles are perfect, it's whether they're demonstrably safer. The next issue is some critics suggest that autonomous vehicles could disrupt jobs, but innovation's always reshaped work, from the automobile replacing horse-drawn transport to tractors transforming agriculture to rapid transit replacing bus drives. It just happens. It's progress. Things change. People need to adapt and get new jobs depending on what happens in our environment. So with that, Safe Roads Maryland respectfully request your positive report for HB 1295.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marlo Jacobson. I'm the Director of Advancement at the Maryland School for the Blind. Our school serves students from across the entire state of Maryland who are blind or low vision, along with thousands of families and alumni. One of the biggest barriers our community faces isn't education or ability, it's transportation. Because our students can't drive, everyday activities like getting to work, school, medical appointments, all of that, they depend on public transit, paratransit, ride-hailing services, and help from family and friends. Those aren't reliable all the time. I hear and see constantly ride-sharing, Uber and Lyft drivers. We were hosting an event with 3,000 people on our campus. The goal of the event was to introduce accessibility and to help people understand ableism. At the end of the event, we had a lot of blind people who were there waiting for rides, and I watched 3 out of 5 in a row Uber and Lyft drivers just turn around and leave and reject the ride as soon as they saw a white cane or a guide dog. That is not uncommon. That is more common than getting the ride, as you heard from Ronza. And because of that, and many other reasons, that autonomous vehicles will open up opportunities for our students in our communities, all communities with disability. We ask that you, this is my first time doing this, so please give me a moment.
You're doing great.
Oh, done. Favorable, please.
Great job. I do not see any questions, so we will move on. We have something. Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Allen.
I know, I'm sorry, my computer blocks it sometimes. First, I just want to thank Marlo and the School for the Blind for being here, that it resides at least partially in District 8. So we're always very proud to see you, and thank you for being here. My question is for Ms. January. You mentioned all the different venues and places that autonomous vehicles could take you, but you failed to mention one, so I want to clarify. Could an autonomous vehicle take me to a sphere if we had one?
Oh, like the one in National Harbor that may be coming very soon?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, we will turn to virtual favorable testimony from Margaret Durkin, TechNet.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman and members of the committee. My name is Margaret Durkin, and I'm the Mid-Atlantic Executive Director for TechNet, a tech trade association. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today on House Bill 1295. I submitted written remarks, and many of our favorable comments echo what was previously brought up by panelists. We think that this AV framework is a great starting point in Maryland and encourage a favorable vote from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have virtual favorable testimony from Christopher Danielson, National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. Mr. Danielson. Mr. Danielson, last call.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Please go ahead.
All right. I'm president of the Greater Baltimore chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and everyone on the committee. For blind people, transportation is not simply a matter of convenience. It is a fundamental issue of independence and equality. While Baltimore has public bus service, many blind people cannot always reach the bus stops due to additional disabilities, severe weather, or frankly, because of the deplorable condition of sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure in the city. Paratransit services such as MTA Mobility require reservations in advance or limit how many rides we can take in a day and where we can travel. While ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft are sometimes useful, they come with a risk of discrimination, as you've heard. Guide dog users frequently experience outright denial of service, and even those of us who use a white cane find ourselves refused a ride. AVs offer a transformative alternative. Unlike human drivers, they do not discriminate. They also don't text or talk on the phone while they drive, play music too loud, set the temperature in the car either to polar vortex or Sahara Desert, or ask us 47 questions about blindness that we've probably already had to answer 47 other times that day. We are instead in complete control of the situation, including the temperature and whether we hear our favorite music or just have a nice, peaceful, quiet ride. They're on the road whenever we need them, including if we have a midnight emergency, be it an actual medical situation or just a really strong late-night craving for tater tots. They incorporate accessibility features that make them usable by blind people. For example, they can play a sound so we can easily locate them, and they don't get impatient and drive off if we take a few minutes to do so. For all those reasons, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions, we're going to move to in-person favorable amendment testimony. We have Bill Kress, Josh Fisher from the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, and Bruce Plaxton, Maryland Association for Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Josh Fisher. I'm with the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We are the trade group which represents the automakers that produce about 90% of all the new vehicles sold in the U.S. each year. I'd like to thank Delegate Ziegler for bringing this bill forward, and I'm happy to be here to express our support, if amended, for House Bill 1295. With the right refinements, this bill will establish the legal framework Maryland needs to lead in the deployment of autonomous vehicles. So I want to start with why this matters. You've heard it from the other witnesses, but this is all about safety. Safety is the top priority. While the cars we build today are the safest in history, you've heard the fatality numbers. We are facing a crisis on our roads. And the evidence is overwhelming and unequivocal that driver behavior, impairment, speeding, and reckless driving is the primary cause of these tragedies. When you look at the 480 fatalities on Maryland roads last year, 94 from speeding, 33 from aggressive driving, 10 from distracted driving, 167 from impaired driving. Just 4 human behaviors are causing over 300 fatalities a year. So the sooner we can bring these technologies to Maryland's roads, the sooner we can realize the life-saving potential. In addition to safety, this is also a matter of Maryland's economic competitiveness. The automotive industry is currently in a global race. Washington, D.C. and other states are already moving, and international competitors like China are aggressively setting the conditions to dominate this space. While vehicle deployment is not an overnight process, it's a multi-year cycle involving thousands of suppliers. When our members decide where to invest capital, where to build new supply chains, they look for regulatory certainty. If Maryland remains a question mark on the map of whether this technology is allowed, that investment, those jobs, and that innovation will go elsewhere. The technology is not going anywhere, but it won't come here if Maryland's not open to it. That regulatory certainty provides assurances to the industry that if they come and invest, that capital will not go to waste. So we have a chance to make Maryland's transportation system cleaner, smarter, and most importantly, safer for those who need those options most. We've shared our amendments with the sponsors. We worked with the VL on that, and we request a favorable report with amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bruce Plaxton. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Association for Justice. I'm also currently serving as president of the American Association for Justice, the largest plaintiffs group of trial lawyers in the world. I've had an opportunity to speak with the sponsor about the importance of this bill, and listening to the proponent's testimony, I can tell you that the trial lawyers believe in safety and have no dispute with any of the statements made by the proponents of this bill. The importance of safety, we're not against technology, but we do want to point out that this bill does not bring Maryland in line with the 25 other states and does not provide a complete framework without a compensation system for the victims. You heard that 92% of the accidents may disappear, but you're leaving behind, by passing this bill, you would leave behind a remedy for the 8 or 10% of people who still suffer serious injuries on our roads. The bill as written is devoid of how people receive compensation, how injured persons receive compensation. When there's no driver to make a claim against, there is no case. There is no claim for compensation for people injured on our roads. Innocent people, pedestrians, innocent people driving cars that may be struck. While the technology is excellent, it's not foolproof. You heard from the advocates say that it's not 100% accident-free. And on behalf of trial lawyers, on behalf of the injured people, on behalf of your constituents, I would urge you to consider an amendment that would make someone responsible, that needs to designate somebody as the driver of the vehicle. So many of our laws refer to a driver. Well, when you have a driverless car, someone has to fill that void. I would direct you to the written testimony of Professor Will Hubbard, who outlines why we need a driver. And behind me, Daniel Hinkle of the American Association for Justice will explain why we need to designate a driver and why we need Maryland to pass a law similar to the 25 other states that do outline a system for compensation for our injured, for your injured constituents and our neighbors.
Great, thank you, Mr. Plaxton. Just so I understand, you want parity. If there's a rule set that applies to manned vehicles, women vehicles, you want the same set of rules to apply to autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, we have rules of the road, and we don't know who's going to pay those tickets, who's going to pay those claims when an autonomous vehicle breaks the law or causes an accident.
So the rules of liability should have parity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much. I want to expound on that a little bit. So wouldn't it be assumed, or you wanted to state explicitly, that the brand, and I know we have Waymo here, but I know there are other brands, wouldn't we assume that they would be the responsible party, that they would be paying the tickets, that if there was an accident, they would assume that liability and be essentially the person?
The bill doesn't say that. Yeah, that would be the system that we would propose, but the bill doesn't say that.
Okay.
There's nothing in the proposed law that makes the manufacturer responsible for the negligence of their vehicle.
Thank you.
Okay, it was pointed out to me that Delegate Secretary Schultz is here. Did you want to testify?
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. I believe a representative from Maryland Technology.
Okay, great. Okay, then we're going to turn to our virtual favorable amendment testimony. We have Daniel Hinkle from the Maryland Association for Justice.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Corbin and members of the committee. My name is Daniel Hinkle. I am Senior Counsel for Policy and State Affairs at the American Association for Justice, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Association for Justice, as Bruce just said, strongly urging amendments to the bill, right? Safe automated driving requires accountability. I've submitted written testimony with specific recommendations to align Maryland with Pennsylvania and Virginia, and happy to answer questions after this. But I really want to frame what this bill's about, right? The conversation tends to circle around automated vehicles, but what we're really talking about is automated drivers. And a state needs to regulate them like drivers. You heard it from Waymo, they are building an automated driver. But this bill as drafted does not regulate automated drivers. There is no parity with human drivers. States license drivers. States hold them accountable for following the rules of the road. This bill doesn't do either of those things yet as drafted. Now, Waymo's repeated failure to stop for school buses across multiple states is a key example of how a single driving flaw can be multiplied across vehicles in an entire fleet. And that's why we can't just trust them on safety. There needs to be an appropriate legal framework that holds them accountable for safe driving. Pennsylvania has already adopted a driver-centric framework that avoids some of the issues with this bill. Virginia's Senate recently passed a bill that I think is a good model to look to, as it requires automated driving companies to register with the state. It makes that party responsible for driving safely. It bans forced arbitration, preventing companies from hiding behind a rigged system when they do cause serious injury or death, and ensures enforcement follows the company operating the vehicle, not the car. Now, Uber and Lyft have gotten away with discrimination because they use forced arbitration. Any company that insists on avoiding responsibility is not a company you should trust to drive around your children. Now, we support automated driving, but only with the accountability that Marylanders deserve. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Will Hubbard.
Hello, my name is Will Hubbard, and I am a professor at the University of Baltimore School of Law. Thank you, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, and the rest of the committee for giving me a chance to speak today. Along with my spoken testimony, I've also submitted more detailed written testimony. My academic research focuses on legal aspects of innovation, including the regulation of autonomous vehicles under state law. And on the basis of my research, I support House Bill 1295 with an amendment. In particular, I encourage the committee to amend the bill to clearly identify who will be legally responsible if a fully autonomous vehicle fails to comply with the Maryland rules of the road. For conventional vehicles, we know who this is. It's the driver of the vehicle. When a human driver runs a red light, a police officer can issue a ticket to the driver. If that violation causes an accident, an injured victim can sue the driver. House Bill 1295 paves the way for the use in Maryland of fully autonomous vehicles without a human driver. The bill defines the operator of the autonomous vehicle to be the automated driving system, which is essentially the vehicle's electronic self-driving brain. But this notion of operator identifies a part of the car, not a legally responsible actor. A police officer cannot give a part of a car a ticket, nor can a pedestrian hit in a crosswalk sue a part of a car. I encourage the committee to amend the bill in two respects. First, to require that the person providing the first responder interaction plan also certify that the vehicle can operate in accordance with Maryland law. And second, to provide that this person may be issued a traffic citation or other penalty if the vehicle fails to comply with Maryland law. Notably, this is the approach adopted in Pennsylvania, as was mentioned, as well as Arizona, the first state where Waymo began offering rides to the public. For these reasons, I encourage the committee to issue a favorable report with amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Delegate Stein.
Professor Hubbard, thanks very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. And I guess you're testifying that if we adopt the amendments that you're recommending, that any question concerning liability, negligence of the car could be imputed to that individual who submitted the first responder plan. Is that right? Is that what the other states have done?
So the other states have explicitly stated that the person that is certifying that the vehicle can operate in compliance with state law can be issued a citation as well as other applicable penalties.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, not seeing any additional questions, so we will turn to unfavorable in-person testimony. We have Brian Weibel, ATU Local 1300, Keith Anderson, and the Teamsters, Wyatt Vales, also the Teamsters, Albert York, Teamsters, David Pendleton, Smart TD, and Lawrence Wolf from the Teamsters, and then I know we have a few others, we'll take them after.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Weibel with Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 689 and 1300. First off, I want to talk about the economic incentives of setting up a new market like this, because to be clear, the first people that will lose their jobs from this legislation will be the most skilled, the most professional drivers, and I would argue, obviously, the safest drivers, because the people that would be losing their jobs from this legislation would be the ones that have to be paid to be drivers. So if a company has an incentive to roll out these vehicles, it's not going to be some private sales market where people are buying these vehicles for themselves. It's going to be in use cases where workers are losing their jobs. Trained, skilled workers are losing their jobs because of this legislation. I also want to point out, I know there's been a floated MDOT labor study. Unfortunately, we shouldn't be doing a study concurrently with the effects of legislation like this. It should be something that's done in anticipation of considering things like this. I would also like to point out that most of the issues that have been mentioned of the failures of the rideshare industry, to be clear, are failures of under-regulation of TNCs, not over-regulation. I would also like to point out, what's the rush? DC does not have autonomous Waymos. They're waiting pending a report that has not been released. Virginia just kicked their legislation that has been floated to 2027. They're not sprinting ahead with this. I also want to point out, what are the real benefits that are floated? Cheaper rides? Have we seen cheaper rides from TNCs? Once the subsidy money for TNCs dried up, all that was left was additional profitability for these companies. What are we going to see in the market for this? We are going to see all of the benefits in quote unquote cheaper rides go to these same companies. And it's just a few that are the real market movers in the beginning here. And then I would also leave everyone with the question, what is a gig worker to do? Are they supposed to file for unemployment? Good luck with that. They're gig workers. Additionally, are they supposed to learn to code? Those jobs are getting automated away too. So I encourage people to look at the potentially negative impacts of this legislation. Thank you.
Chair Corman, Chair Guyton, and members of my favorite committee, House ENT. My name is David Pendleton, I'm the Director of the Maryland Safety and Legislative Board for the Transportation Division of SMART, and I'm here today urging the committee to vote unfavorable for HB 1295. This bill would open Maryland's public roads to testing for fully autonomous driving technology that, when fully implemented, would undoubtedly lead to unsafe roads, tens of thousands of job losses in the state, and hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue to the general fund. There are over 100,000 driving jobs here in the state of Maryland. This sector is the most used path to enter into the middle class, often requiring only a high school diploma and a CDL license to get started. This one subsection of the entire transportation sector generates over $4.5 billion in wages and pays hundreds of millions of dollars annually to the Maryland General Fund and income taxes. This technology threatens to eliminate not only these jobs, but also the tens of thousands of rideshare, bus, passenger van, and cargo jobs in the sector. Considering that $4.6 billion in wages paid to the middle class, that actually equals out to $4.6 billion in economic activity. So when you multiply this across the entire sectors, it threatens economic destruction in our state. There are many questions surrounding this technology, and here's the most important one. What's the plan? What's the plan to replace the lost revenue? What's the plan for the state to pay for the numerous unemployment benefits? What's the plan to replace close to 100,000 jobs? What's the plan for retraining workers? And frankly, would there be a place left in the middle class if we could just wholesalely wipe out an entire sector of employment? So before fully embracing this destructive technology, I hope these questions will be answered, and with these things in mind, I urge an unfavorable report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for holding this important hearing today. Okay. My name is Wyatt Vales, and I've been a senior driver for Ruron Transportation Company for the last 18 years. I've been driving for a total of 45 years. I'm also a member of the Teamsters Local 639. As a driver for Ruron, I complete deliveries between our warehouses and customers throughout the Maryland and Washington, D.C. area. I'm very proud to play a critical role in our region's supply chain. The work that my colleagues and I do each day helps to make sure that shelves are stocked in stores for Maryland's families. And I am proud to make a living doing that. As a Teamster member, I'm proud to have a career where I can provide and support myself and my family and other people around me. I want young people to have the same opportunity where I can provide for and support myself and my family and the other people around me. I do this all because I am a professional driver. Replacing my job with driverless vehicles not only puts Maryland's motorists at risk, but it threatens to undermine Maryland's middle class. Jobs like mine are the backbone of our state's middle class. I earn a fair wage, I have security in my retirement, I can provide for my family, and I am a proud contributor to the well-being of my community. That is what is at risk by destroying not just my career, but the careers of tens of thousands of people throughout our state. And the people who stand in favor of destroying middle-class livelihoods through unchecked automation, they will do nothing to replace those jobs once they are gone. I respectfully ask you to please listen to our concerns. Don't take opportunities away from me and the next generation of drivers. We need to protect good jobs in this state and not eliminate them. I strongly urge you to oppose HB 11295. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Keith Anderson. I'm a member of Teamsters Local 639. I am a professional driver who operates a tractor trailer for United Parcel Service. As a UPS Teamsters, I'm essential to keeping the economy of Maryland moving. As a professional driver, I am required by law to hold a commercial driver's license. I have dedicated countless hours of my time going through extensive training in order to obtain a CDL, keeping not only myself safe, but the public safe on Maryland's roads. Professional drivers like me do not operate on a closed track with no consequences. I drive on the same roads as your kids, school buses, your parents driving to their doctor's appointments, and with cyclists and pedestrians, and have been properly trained to do this safely. Further, when Teamsters like me are operating on the road, dangerous incidents can happen at any time. Blown tires, mechanical failures, encounters with people who need help. People who are stranded, people who are also having life-threatening medical emergencies, people who are elderly or disabled, or who have nobody else to give them a hand. These are all circumstances I am trained and experienced enough to resolve professionally, safely, and compassionately. Driverless cars and trucks cannot offer the same safe professional service that I do on a daily basis. This is not what innovation should look like. Innovation should not come at the cost of safety. For this reason, I urge you to oppose House Bill 1295. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Albert York. I'm a 33-year union driver. In 33 years, I've had no reportable accidents. I have had the opportunity to save lives on these roads. It's a fringe benefit of having a human being in the vehicle. I've pulled people out of burning vehicles. I also don't have the privilege, as a Waymo representative said, I don't have the privilege to not drive through an area that's got a football game going on. I still have to go to those stores. I can't ignore Greenmount Avenue because it was under construction for 3 years. That store is already in a food desert, and we have to deliver there whether we like the road conditions or not. We've been trained to deal with these things. I am to the economic side of it, 117,000 truck drivers, 130+ thousand professional drivers. That's a huge tax base. Besides the tax base, it goes to they eat out, they buy stuff, we stop at convenience stores. There's a huge domino effect to removing drivers from these vehicles. Waymo's had over 1,400 accidents since since July of 21 to December of 25. 1,400 accidents. And they say most of them are not their fault. If I have 4 that aren't my fault, I will be terminated, as I should be. Just not being at fault is not the standard that we're held to. It's about preventability as well. And if I have 4 accidents in a 9-month period, my company's like, what are you doing wrong? Doesn't matter if it's my fault or not. Please vote no on HB 1295. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Delegate Boyce.
And thank you all for being here. Talking about this, I think I would speak for everyone here, is that I don't think anyone intends this legislation to take anybody's job. But what I will say, and I thank you for talking about, you know, this may create cheaper jobs, it's going to harm the gig economy. I heard leading to unsafe roads. I've heard what is the plan for revenue and loss of revenue. But what I haven't heard is the other side of this. We had a whole community here saying that they more often than not are discriminated against. And let's just kind of narrow it down. For instance, when we're talking about the commercial ride shares, right? More often than not, discriminated against. And this is something they're advocated for because it gives them autonomy in a way that they do not receive now. So I'd like to hear just your thoughts about that, because I don't think that's their intention as well. Their intention is to be autonomous.
Definitely. And so, Brian Wyville, we at 689, we represent thousands of paratransit workers. To be perfectly clear, our concerns with all of this legislation have absolutely nothing to do with the elderly community or the community with disabilities. Our concerns are with the economic incentives of these companies. So to the question of how do you actually give people a better sense of autonomy, a better way to get around, a better place, a better freedom of mobility, that comes through fully funded paratransit. That comes through holding TNC companies accountable for their bad behavior. Transportation network companies, which have done a massive damage and disservice to the kind of mobility system of the state of Maryland, they're not held accountable to the same standards. They are not required to do the same level of ADA required paratransit. They're only required to do curb-to-curb service. All of the discriminatory things that were mentioned, we abhor those. That should not be the type of service that the elderly or the disabled receive. And we believe the solution to that is better funded, professionally trained staff that are W-2 employees for paratransit services, preferably done in-house with a career workforce.
Thank you.
Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the drivers, I understand the piece of the driving that you're concerned about. But at the same time, you also do deliveries, don't you?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So the Waymo can't do the deliveries.
If I may speak to that, for UPS, that would be true. They can't walk into, like the giant drivers. We back up to a dock. Someone else takes care of the product. Waymo could absolutely take my job away and back up to the loading dock. Oh, no, not Waymo. It would be another company. Waymo doesn't use that model, but it could be another company that backs up that tractor trailer to a loading dock and waits to be unloaded and then leaves without ever interacting with the store or the customers.
But aren't there instances where, I understand your condition, but if there's a FedEx driver and he's got to drop stuff off at a person's house, obviously the Waymo or a automated vehicle is not going to be able to do that job. Is that correct?
There are ways around that. Drop positions or drop spots in the front of, they just pull up and leave the package. Again, not Waymo, but there are other companies who just deliver the package to a spot in front of the home on the curb. They just pull up and drop it there.
Thank you.
Not ideal for the customer, of course.
Got it.
My job per se is actually, I deliver with the Whole Foods markets, and I actually have to go back into a dock and then deliver the product into the store itself. So I sort of do it all, I guess.
Delegate Morgan, if I could, while I would say currently at this time, Waymo probably could not as the technology develops, no doubt other transportation companies are going to sign on and come up with ways to do just that. That's just the nature of things. So yes, at some point in time down the road, it's quite possible that they will become unemployed. Maybe not today, but as the way technology progresses, I could easily see it happening in our lifetimes.
Thank you. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for being here. Definitely sensitive to your arguments. I have many constituents that are employed in your various organizations, so I'm very sensitive to that. I've had some compelling conversations with other constituents, though, in my district. Some folks from the MS community have come to my office and they've said, look, paratransit is great for the individual that needs to get to their doctor's appointment, to the grocery store, whatever the case might be. However, these individuals, they've got children, right? They got to get their kids to soccer practice. They've got to get their kids to baseball practice, to whatever, ballet, whatever the case might be. Paratransit doesn't seem to be there for those kinds of things in those kinds of circumstances. Some of my constituents are saying that they might have to move to a state that allows this to be able to continue to function in a productive way. And by the way, these folks still want to continue to go to work, right? Right now, they can't go to work potentially. There's an economic loss there, right, from society for people that otherwise could participate but can't. I'm not saying that y'all are trying to harm those folks, but I'd like you to give me an answer of what do we do with that circumstance? Because that's a little bit different than just saying fully fund paratransit. That's a different conversation, I believe.
So to be perfectly honest, though, that's part of paratransit. It refers to obviously the legally required amount of like ADA service that's within like a 3/4 mile catchment area of public transit. If you want paratransit to compete with the flexibility that you're asking for just within that 3/4 mile thing, it's never going to be able to compete. It's basically trying to fight back against TNCs with its hands tied behind its back. If you want to have like what ATU's vision of a modern paratransit system that's able to get people where they need to go, we're not going to say that, yeah, you can only do 24-hour book ahead in advance service. We're not going to say you can only go to locations within 3/4 of a mile of a catchment zone or bus stop or something like that. We want the type of service that your constituents are asking for, but unfortunately, Delegate, it is going to require additional money to be able to do that, because right now, these paratransit services, they are looking for anything they can do to lower costs to be able to meet the demand that they have. And so it's going to cost more money to be able to do that. So then the only other argument is eliminate drivers. And we think there's a healthy medium there where you can fund expanded paratransit, it can offer services to other locations, and it doesn't have to be this extremely rigid, booked, like I said, a day in advance service to only get delivered door-to-door service at one location. We think that's possible. It is going to take money, though.
May I have a follow-up, Madam Chair? Just one.
Sure. We do have other witnesses, and we also have a few other members who want to ask questions.
Yes, ma'am. No. And sir, and I respect that, and I don't disagree with what you said, but I would say the circumstance I'm talking about, I think, is a little bit more than just locations. I think it's also considering the fact that, this gentleman was saying, hey, my son wants to have, his 2 other friends from the baseball team. So are you saying that all of a sudden paratransit is also going to be able to pick up the 2 other kids from the baseball team as well?
That would be my argument. Right now, one of the largest innovations in the public transit area is first mile, last mile connections and micro transit and things like that, that absolutely would allow for the type of flexibility you're describing. Unfortunately, if the state is only interested in funding the narrow ADA required definition of like legally required paratransit, then yeah, it's not going to be able to do that. We believe in fully funded public transit that can get people where they need to go. If the holdup and concern is they want additional people riding in a vehicle, ATU is never going to oppose getting more people in vehicles to where they need to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In the rural area, first for the truck driver, in the rural areas of Maryland, we can't find drivers. We have a shortage of CDL drivers that are capable of driving our vehicles. So we don't have the luxury that you have in the urban areas with drivers. We don't have a taxi cab company in our county. When I call to line up a friend of mine's medical appointment, I have to do it to get him medical transportation. I have to call maybe a month or so ahead of time. So when he has an appointment, when she has an appointment and she gets referred to another doctor or has to go get x-rays or further testing, we have to carry her ourselves because the transportation is already booked up. So the rural areas are suffering from a lack of availability. And I understand your concerns. Look, as a farmer, I understand seeing your livelihood on the edge and wanting to defend it. I understand that thoroughly. But do you see any way in this bill to allow the rural communities or an underserved population that has a very compelling argument? Do you see any wiggle room here?
So we're going to be speaking on Monday, labor and sponsors, and let's bring that up. Let's talk about that then. We can't answer that right now.
That's fine.
But we are supposed to be looking at having a big meeting on Monday, and let's bring that point up and let's discuss that there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think that was, you guys said this. Maybe this is to Brian or to Dave, but I think what you said was it's not so much the technology, it's the economic plan or the business plan. I forget how you put it. Yeah. So, I mean, other than I hear you on paratransit, I think that's like a separate area in some sense. Because we do have a dedicated workforce to that, to the transit. And, I'm totally sympathetic to that. But I'm wondering do you have any idea of do you have any ideas around the economics of it and how it would be different, other than the paratransit, which I think is not, there's one part of it, right? Because I certainly make no secret out of the fact that I, don't want to do things to put workers out of work, ever. Yeah. But I am totally sympathetic to the disabled community and to the testimony from the National Federation for the Blind about this. And I do think there is an accessibility benefit to some of this. So, can you share if you have, some ideas around that area?
Sure. I mean, when I'm talking about the issue that I have with the economic incentives of this whole kind of plan right now is, to be clear, if this was about companies coming forward to sell individual autonomous vehicles to, families or something like that, I don't think you would see the level of opposition you have up here today. Part of the issue is this industry's model is built on the 2014 TNC model, where they announce they're going into a city and then ask for permission after to enter into that city. And now their goal, because the greatest site of profitability is taking professional drivers, the most skilled and experienced drivers, and eliminating those jobs to replace them with autonomous vehicles. That's where the interest from the industry largely is. There obviously are some companies that are doing direct to consumer. There are obviously ones that are looking at fleets and stuff like that. But the real interest right now is around robo-taxis and seeing what they can do to kind of quote unquote disrupt, a word that I've never understood, but disrupt the supply chain and logistics industry. But that is why when I say, like, the biggest issues we have is if this was about getting people autonomous vehicles for their own personal use, and to be clear, taking the least skilled drivers off the road, the most distracted drivers, the ones that are not driving as a job or a career, then you probably would not see the same level of opposition we have currently.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Seeing no more questions for this panel, we do have another panel coming up, unfavorable. We have, if you could make room for Denise Gilmore, ask me for Lawrence Wolf, for Donna Edwards, and Elizabeth Bobo. And whomever would like to begin may do so.
I would just like to say that Donna Edwards will not be here today. I am in her place.
Tell her we're so disappointed.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Bobo, and I am the Legislative Director at the Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. First, I want to start out by thanking the sponsor and the Senate sponsor for reaching out immediately after they saw the opposition testimony come in and be submitted to set up a meeting with us and discuss our concerns. We really appreciate that effort. A lot has been said already, but I want to reiterate the safety concerns first and then go into the workforce concerns second. So some safety concerns. There have been many real-world instances where autonomous vehicles have proven they are not ready for unsupervised operation. For example, if you do a quick Google search of autonomous vehicle safety concerns, you'll see that there were 20 incidents in Austin, Texas, where AVs illegally stopped school buses with flashing red lights, endangering children, and this resulted in a total recall of the software. Also, I understand the point that humans make errors, but technology also makes errors. And when driving conditions aren't perfect, for example, we had a huge snowstorm a couple weeks ago where visibility was at 0. AVs can't drive in that. They do not do well in hard rain, they do not do well in fog, they do not do well at dawn, and they do not do well at dusk. So when does that leave them to drive? That leaves them to drive in nearly perfect conditions, which that doesn't happen. In addition to this, these systems fail to detect human bodies, unusual objects, and complex roadway cues such as construction zones. This bill still treats the system as the legal driver, which brings up legal issues and liability issues, as was previously said. Yes, this technology is here, but as we know and have seen the negative impacts technology can have on workers. Nearly 3% of U.S. workers are employed in driving occupations, and national estimates project up to 5 million job losses due to AVs. This impacts truck drivers, bus operators, taxi drivers, and other entry-level drivers. Maryland public roads should not be testing ground for unproven and unregulated technology, nor should workers be displaced by this technology. For these reasons, we strongly urge an unfavorable vote on on HB 1295.
Thank you so much.
Great. Good afternoon. Denise Gilmore here with AFSCME Council 3. We represent 55,000 public servants across Maryland. Our membership includes thousands of highly skilled CDL drivers, including those who transport our students in public schools across Maryland and on our higher education campuses every day. We want to protect those vital jobs, and we want to make sure that the safety of Marylanders that we serve are protected, which is why we are opposing House Bill 1295. We've already talked about how the voices of organized labor were excluded from this legislation, but I want to pick up on a couple of points that my union siblings have made previously on this panel. There was a briefing over in JPR on January 29th where the MVA administrator specifically mentioned that the expansion of this legislation could lead to bus operators, in particular, potentially losing their jobs, right? That's what we're talking about. I think that the losses to workforce are something that are reason for us to act extremely cautiously here and bring all the stakeholders to the table before we decide to move in a place where we do legislation. That is a big reason that we are opposing this. As a union that obviously represents bus drivers, we are also concerned about some of the safety risks. In January, the NTSB opened up an investigation in Texas on Waymo, refusing to or not stopping at some school bus stops. That's a concern. AFSCME, looks at artificial vehicles similarly to artificial intelligence. We want to make sure that we have workforce development opportunities, that we are also, moving in a direction where we are preventing worker displacement. Appreciate the opportunity to testify and that we can keep working on this, but yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Guyton. My name is Larry Wolf.
I'm with Teamsters Joint Council 62. We represent 15,000 members that live and work in the state of Maryland. Many of those are commercial drivers, many of those that carry a CDL. And I know there's been a lot of talk about safety and distracted drivers. But I got to tell you, if you don't know, that our drivers are some of the most highly scrutinized in the most scrutinized industry in the country. And many of these rules and regs set forth by FMCSA and the Department of Transportation carry them to their personal lives. Speeding tickets, DUIs, they regulate their hours of service, their rest times, and so on. I was proud to be a founding member of, or founding co-chair for the safety committee at UPS 25 years ago. And I take that very seriously. I've offered every company that we bargain with to participate in their health and safety programs, and applaud those companies for the money and time that they spend to provide the continued training for their employees. I don't want you to misunderstand. We certainly benefited by a lot of technology changes over the years. And there's all kinds of things that help drivers be more safe. But those systems fail from time to time. And it all comes back onto the drivers of those vehicles. We, excuse me. So there's a lot of concern for these good, high-paying jobs. We believe that there are a lot of safe drivers that we represent out there. And there are concerns, I won't reiterate, but you've heard about some of the incidents around the country. And it scares the living daylights out of me thinking about 80,000-pound trucks, driverless trucks, hauling equipment, hauling product up and down the road. We ask for an unfavorable report.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't see any questions from the committee. I do want to just take a minute to thank everyone who is still here. It's been a very long day in the world's best committee, Environment and Transportation. You were all incredibly patient and incredibly respectful with everything that was said today. I especially want to thank our friends from the Federation of the Blind, because it is not easy for you to be here, and it is not easy for you to get here. And so just a point of personal privilege, because I happen to have the chair spot right now. I've been working with that group of people for a very long time, trying to figure out not just these, but other folks who are dependent on public transportation, trying to get to the bottom of a system that quite simply is quite broken, right, for people who need to get from place to place. I would love for you all to be at the table, but also to help come up with solutions to that between this year and next year. So I'm just going to ask you personally to work with us, to work with me, and let's work together to come up with a solution, at least to that piece of it. I don't know if this bill will pass this year or not. We haven't had that conversation. But if it doesn't, or if it does, I think we still have a lot of work to do with that. And we all, and I'm not just talking to you all, there are folks in the back too. We have to come together to make this easier for our friends with physical challenges. So thank you very much for that, and I apologize for that long speech. So that ends the hearing right now on Delegate Ziegler's fabulous bill. That ends all of the hearings today for the Environment and Transportation. We do have a couple of subcommittee announcements. Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Foley, do you have a subcommittee announcement?
I do, but it's yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I do, but it's hard for me to make it without Delegate Lewis. The utilities, a non-energy utilities subcommittee was originally scheduled to meet after Delegate Lewis's subcommittee, which I hope she's still doing that. Okay, so that's, we'll do that.
Delegate Foley, we'll let your subcommittee go first, and then as soon as you're done, maybe Delegate Lewis's subcommittee can meet. Or does she? Oh, unless
I don't care. She wanted me to go later. All right, I can go now.
Yes.
We can have the utility subcommittee meet at 5 of 5.
Wonderful.
Virtual.
And then if you are on transportation, please watch your texts carefully. It will be right after, as long as our chair is back from our hearings, it will be right after non-energy utilities. Thank you so much.